27, 2020 meeting of the McCracken Fiscal Court. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Parker.
Here.
Commissioner Bartleman.
Here.
Judge Leeper. I'm sorry, Judge Clymer. I really messed that up, didn't I?
You've done that twice now.
I know it.
I'm here. Clymer's here.
All right.
All right, then Commissioner Bartleman, you offer our prayer, please.
Let us pray. Father, we just thank you for the blessings of this day. We thank you for the opportunity we have to gather together here today, Father. We just pray for all those here that we'll have a fruitful meeting, Father, and that we'll conduct business in a way that would glorify you. Father, we're so thankful for those who are here, for their involvement in county government and state government. Father, we just, again, thankful for them for their involvement. Father, we ask you to be with us as we make decisions important to this county. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, stand and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, then we've got the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So made. Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries. Budget transfers.
It is ordered that the necessary cash transfers in the amount of $200,000 be made in order to pay county bills and payroll approved January 27th, 2020.
So made.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries. Accounts payable.
It is ordered to approve the vouchers claim register from January 13th, 2020 to January 27th, 2020 to show county bills in the amount of $187,741.73 were paid.
Okay.
So made.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries. All right, we've got a number of things on the discussion item tonight. We had a request from the Second Amendment sanctuary folks. I don't know exactly if you have a formal name. That's, you know who you are, Second Amendment folks. We are going to, our format that we use for our meetings is, some of you are aware of it, some of you are not, but we use these meetings. The law prohibits us from getting together outside of a formal meeting where the TV camera's rolling and the public's here, the writers are writing from the Paducah Sun. And so we use these meetings as our opportunity and our only opportunity to get together and decide where we're going to be on various things. We are diverging somewhat from that and inviting someone, or maybe more than one, from the Second Amendment group to address this body if they wish to, because I think the exception is warranted in that we have I think a pretty clear understanding of our role in that, and there's not really too much that needs to be discussed or batted back among ourselves as far as the Second Amendment. But is there someone here that wants to speak for it? Yes, ma'am. Come on up to the lectern here, please. Oh, and let me, certainly we'll hear whatever you want to say, ma'am. And I don't know, you have others that want to speak too?
I'm sure there may be a few. I don't know. But I do have something that I've prepared.
Okay.
For you
let
guys.
me just, again, we'll hear whatever you have to say. Let me assure you that this body and each of us individually are supporters of the Second Amendment by choice as well as by law. And so why I say that is you don't need to try to convince us to be behind the Second Amendment. The question becomes, what can we do about what you're wanting us to do? But we'll, we've got a lot of things on here, but we're hoping that we can keep maybe do you think 20 minutes or thereabouts would cover
Should be.
everybody?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay.
State your name for us, please.
My name is Shay Faulkner Simmons,
All right, thank you.
and I'm here representing the MC2A Grassroots Organization. To the members of the Fiscal Court of McCracken County, I would like to first start by thanking God for this opportunity and for the Fiscal Court for allowing me the freedom of speech guaranteed by the First Amendment to express the concerns of McCracken County residents, letting our voices be heard. Standing here before you today, I am speaking on behalf of many people of McCracken County. The Fiscal Court officials stated that they are pro-Second Amendment. So our message to the Fiscal Court is clear. The residents of McCracken County want a Second Amendment sanctuary resolution to pass, and the residents of McCracken County are watching to see if the Fiscal Court truly supports the Second Amendment. The Fiscal Court has been made aware of our proposal for a resolution to be known as a Second Amendment sanctuary county. In an open records request by WPSD, it was discovered that County Attorney Clymer sent out an email advising the Fiscal Court not to pass an ordinance or a resolution, and further implying that it would be outside the rule of state law if they were to do so. In layman's terms, Clymer is telling the Fiscal Court not to support our grassroots movement in pursuit to protect our God-given rights, not to be known or not to be the voice of the people who elected them to be up to office to protect the people of McCracken County. It is to set the record straight and to clear up any misconceptions the residents of McCracken County and or the Fiscal Court may have about a resolution and its intended purpose. A resolution is not a legally binding document, and it does not overstep the rule of Kentucky state law. A signed resolution by the Fiscal Court is an agreement between the Fiscal Court and its constituents while simultaneously communicating to our legislators in Frankfort that McCracken County Fiscal Court wholeheartedly opposes any infringement on the residents' constitutional rights to keep and bear arms, and will stand by the constituents by not enforcing these laws if and when they should pass. It is a form of referendum letting Frankfort know that we collectively do not support any of the proposed gun legislation in the 2020 legislative session. The only reason why the residents of McCracken County aren't pushing to pass an ordinance is because doing so before these gun laws are passed would be pointless. An ordinance has to apply to a specific law or laws that are currently in place and enforced. So we will cross the ordinance bridge when the opposed gun laws pass. As word gets out, as word gets out about the measures that Frankfort has taken to disarm the very people that elected them to their respective positions, the amount of signatures is growing as the petition gains momentum. The attack on the Second Amendment is not just about the Second Amendment. It's about dismantling the entire Bill of Rights, beginning with the Second Amendment first. The Second Amendment gives its citizens the ability to protect all other amendments against a tyrannical government. If we do not take action, the Second Amendment will be the first to fall. Is the Fiscal Court of McCracken County going to stand with its residents and the rest of Kentucky? The U.S. Supreme Court has twice ruled in the last 11 years that the right to keep and bear arms is an individual pre-political liberty. The right to bear arms is the biggest category of liberty recognized within the rule of law. If McCracken County Fiscal Court truly believes that passing a Second Amendment sanctuary resolution is illegal, then please explain to the residents of McCracken County why Virginia, West Virginia, Florida, and as of today, 99 counties out of 120 in Kentucky have passed a Second Amendment resolution for their respective county. And I brought an exhibit map for those numbers. Thank you. I'm shaking a little bit. I'm not used to this. So, I have a bottle of water, but I left it in my car. Let's see, where did I lead off? Of the remaining counties, 6 counties are scheduled for a vote. 9 counties, and this changed because there was 1 county that was in there, including McCracken County, that's meeting is scheduled. 4 counties are in progress because now they have a representative in place that can move forward, and 0 have denied the Second Amendment sanctuary resolution, and we're all obviously not in opposition. Before today, McCracken County is in opposition, and Jefferson County is the only one to take no action. As I close with my opening statement to the fiscal court and before reading the rise of the Second Amendment sanctuary, I will ask again, is the McCracken County Fiscal Court going to stand with its constituents, or will the fiscal court be in allegiance with elected state officials who are choosing to rebel against our federal government and the laws they have in place protecting our constitutional rights? There is only one correct answer. This is the rise of the Second Amendment sanctuary. The Second Amendment was passed by Congress on September 25, 1789, and ratified on December 15, 1791. The United States Constitution is the supreme law of our nation. These rights are given to us by our Creator and are inalienable rights and will not be infringed upon. The first 10 amendments are known as the Bill of Rights. We are conceived with these rights and, unless incarcerated, die with these very same rights. The definition of inalienable rights is incapable of being alienated, surrendered, or transferred. Our forefathers had the foresight to know to incorporate the Bill of Rights, making them ironclad, foreseeing for future problems within our governed system. The Bill of Rights cannot be changed by man, and God is never changing. The Constitution's first 3 words, "We the people," affirm that the government exists to serve its citizens and its citizens first and foremost, and not that of their own radical ideologies, personal views, and/or feelings. All elected officials have sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, therefore cannot lawfully order the people, a free people, to surrender their natural rights under the color of law. We have the right to life, liberty, and the ability to protect our property, and the right to protect and defend ourselves against our enemies, foreign and domestic, including but not limited to protecting and defending those who cannot protect and defend themselves. There have been many debates about the gun violence problem, such as suicides, the mental health crisis, mass shootings, the rise in drug abuse, and gang violence, just to name a few, to defend the reasons to enact extreme gun control on the citizens of not only in Kentucky, but throughout each state in the United States. History shows us that these extreme measures by disarming citizens end in socialism and facilitates in the slaughter of millions of innocent people. Take a look at China, Russia, Germany, and North Korea, just to name a few. Those who are proposing these unconstitutional laws are citing that these modern-day weapons were designed for mass destruction and are weapons of war. That couldn't be any further from the truth. Although there is a rapid rise in suicides and alarming decline in mental health, increased drug and gang violence, those are completely separate issues. Therefore, they cannot and will not be laid at the doorstep of lawful gun owners and them being labeled as the one with the gun problem. That's like saying the obesity problem in America is because of the fork and spoon. It is an absurd ideology. Those issues, though they are extremely important issues, are completely separate entities and must be addressed solely within each issue. Suicides and the mental health crisis, the drug and gang violence are without a doubt intertwined, each exacerbating the other. They can and should be tackled together with a well-executed plan. Again, it can be done, but will not be done at the expense of the people with unconstitutional gun laws. The government officials who are attempting to hijack our republic by pushing their copious agenda in the form of socialism, along with any local officials who vow to enforce these unconstitutional gun laws if passed, need to end this nonsense of extreme proportions. It is a grandiose ideology, reckless in pursuit to disarm law-abiding Americans that help keep this country safe from its domestic enemies. This radical and deadly ideology not only endangers the lives of everyday Americans, but also those in the armed forces, law enforcement, and first responders as well. Both the armed forces and law enforcement have sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. They want their law-abiding citizens armed. It's common sense that it makes their job easier and much, much safer. But it seems common sense is no longer common. Taking away the right to bear arms from the people puts America at a state of civil unrest. When the people are forced to surrender their rights to bear arms, those who put their lives on the line each and every day, making the greatest of sacrifices, most likely will not be coming home to their families. America will become its own worst enemy. The government will knowingly do the job of our foreign enemies who have been trying to destroy the United States for centuries. The government will destroy America from the inside out, bringing her to her knees. Criminals have proven they do not obey the law, nor do they value human life, and will wreak havoc on the law-abiding Americans if and when they are disarmed. Stephen McBride, president of the Kentucky Concealed Carry Coalition, stated, and I quote, "We have a Bill of Rights. We do not have a Bill of Needs. We do not have to prove a need to obtain these weapons. We have a right to own them." The people, however, emphatically disagree. We have a right to own them, yes. However, we also have an ever-prevalent need to own them. The need to protect and defend our rights to bear arms is an unambiguous need, as evil is ever growing as the days pass. The signs of the times, as many biblical believers would point out. If we took a look at the statistical numbers per Homeland Security, the average response time for law enforcement is that of 18 minutes. An active shooter scenario lasts an average of 12 and a half minutes. According to the FBI, the average gunfight lasts in 3 seconds or less, in 3 yards or less, with 3 rounds or less. Now just think about those statistics for a moment. Close your eyes and visualize what that will look like when American citizens are made defenseless by the very government who swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. Can you see it? Can you visualize the carnage that will, without argument or debate, occur? It is of unimaginable proportions. A true hell on earth, or Armageddon, if you will. Now imagine for a moment our government being the voice and the will of the people, and that only of the people, doing what they were elected to do by upholding and defending the Constitution of the United States, not only in Kentucky, but also in the states where there are some of the strictest gun laws. The crime rate, especially murders in those states, are erroneous in numbers. There is an overwhelming majority of Americans who emphatically oppose any further gun legislation, and for good reason. Taking a look at the statistical numbers of law-abiding citizens who exercise their right to keep and bear arms is irrefutable. The average reaction time is 2.5 to 3 seconds, potentially saving their lives and or the countless lives of others. It took James Wilson less than 4 seconds to end the horrific violence that took the lives of 2 innocent people at his church that day in White Plains, Texas. He was able to save countless lives of others because he exercises his Second Amendment right every single day. Let's compare the average reaction time to that of the average response time for law enforcement. 2.5 to 3 seconds versus 18 minutes. Now compare the average reaction time to the average shooter scenario. That's 2.5 to 3 seconds versus 12.5 minutes. These laws will also affect your families, your husband, your wife, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your daughter. Will not be exempt from the effects of the violence when these unconstitutional laws are passed. It's not a matter of if they pass, but a matter of when they will pass. How safe do you think your family will be when these laws pass? Would you live in one of the cities who currently have some of the strictest gun laws? Would you be in favor of one of your children or your grandchildren living in one of those cities? In Chicago alone, where they have some of the strictest gun laws in the nation, the average murder rate from Friday through Sunday is 7. 7 people on an average weekend are murdered, and that doesn't include the total people shot on any given weekend. That number reaches into the high 80s and 90s per weekend. See Exhibit 2 that I printed for you, a graph. If we would just enforce the laws we already have on the books, we don't need any more gun laws. The ones we already have work if we utilize them. Enforcing the 4473 federal background check law when somebody purchases a firearm will eliminate the gun grabber's need for a red flag law. The state of Kentucky has a home rule. Home rule means local officials in each county can decide which laws they choose to enforce. McCracken County is a home rule Class 2 county. It is not outside the rule of law to not enforce any unconstitutional laws that are passed by the state elected officials that are acting in a rebellious manner against our federal laws. It is self-servient and an abuse of power against its people. In fact, federal law protects our constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Can the fiscal court of McCracken County in good conscience say they are exercising the voice and the will of the people by promising to enforce the unconstitutional gun legislation in Frankfort if or when they should pass? Can the fiscal court, who took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States over the Kentucky Constitution, truly say and unequivocally and wholeheartedly are expressing the voice and the will of the people who elected them? The residents of McCracken County unequivocally and wholeheartedly disagree. It's not only an assault on our natural rights, but that also that of our intelligence if the fiscal court and the government officials in Frankfort were to truly believe that. The people of McCracken County and throughout all of Kentucky emphatically oppose any further gun laws that infringe on our Second Amendment rights. We do not have a gun problem in America. We have a people problem. We have a United States of America without God problem. The voice of the people, MC2A Rep. Shay Faulkner. Thank you for your time. And here are these.
All right. Can you get them, Pam?
Thank you.
And what, you had a map of the...
The map is in there.
It's in there.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shay.
Sam, do you want to address your research?
Yeah, I guess I'll turn and address the crowd. So, my job as county attorney is, just as it sounds like, I'm the attorney for McCracken County. I'm a lawyer, and I have a client being McCracken County. McCracken County itself is, I guess you would characterize it as kind of an abstract entity. You can't touch it, you can't talk to the actual entity itself, and the actual entity itself can't do anything unless it does so through the executive authority and action of its fiscal court, these guys here. So anything that McCracken County does is a direct result of executive authority vested in its governing body, the fiscal court. And I'm not here to opine on anything that anybody in the community wants to do. You know, my job is to legally advise and safeguard the legal interests of my client. That's what a lawyer does. If you were to hire one, that's exactly what you would want him to do. And so that's what I'm doing right here. The issue presents itself in the form of the statute that we're clashing up against. The statute that we're talking about, it makes it abundantly clear that the General Assembly wants the county to have no part whatsoever in the regulation of the field of firearms. And everybody understands that an ordinance is a regulation. We all get that. I guess the debate comes down to the legal guess, the legal implications of a resolution. A resolution, and that's an official government act. That is an exercise of the executive authority of this body. And it's the only way that the county can express an opinion, take a position, anything, can do anything. It's through that body. The legislature saw fit when they enacted the statute that prohibits any type of local legislation in the area of firearms to anticipate the argument that, well, we're not really legislating. We're not really passing a law here. We're merely passing a resolution. But the legislature addressed that and sought to prohibit that kind of action when it references that no county shall take any action, including an ordinance, executive order, policy, administrative regulation, practice, action, or any type of legislative or executive action in violation of this section or the spirit of this section. A lot of times there's a big difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. The legislature saw fit to erase any type of question about the letter and the spirit by referencing the fact that the letter and the spirit is what matters here. In violation of the letter or the spirit will definitely, it's not a can, it shall impose the fiscal court, my client, and the individual members of the fiscal court to indefensible civil liability and criminal sanctions for official misconduct. So, I mean, these guys could get arrested. The county can and would be sued. The county would have to come out of pocket to pay. These guys would get a judgment against them individually that could be levied and collected upon by levy against any of their unencumbered personally held assets. This is serious business. And when you're talking to a lawyer, I mean, that's what I do. My commitment is to McCracken County vis-a-vis the governing body to protect them from incurring any type of liability, criminal, civil, whatever it may be. The very fact that the legislature chose on 4 separate occasions within the statute to reference that the triggering event for criminal and civil liability is violation of the letter and the spirit. The spirit is counties are to be completely excluded from any regulation or executive action in the field of firearm regulation. And if they were to pass an ordinance, that's going to be an exercise of this very type of action. It's going to be an executive action on behalf of McCracken County through its fiscal court. It's going to violate the spirit and the letter of the statute. Indefensible civil liability attaches personally and criminal charges. So that's where I come down on that. Yes?
2 things. 1, can you speak English? We don't know what you're talking about when it comes to the spirit and the body of the letter. And 2, in layman's terms, what are you telling us is different in our county versus the other counties who have already passed this 2A sanction? Why can we not? Why are you saying that we cannot, but these other counties in Kentucky can? Layman's terms.
Well, it's not necessarily that they can.
Then what is it?
It comes down to the fact that McCracken County has an attorney that spent hours and hours on the research, went outside the statute, looked at case law, attorney general opinions, and I mean, I dug into this. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's what your lawyer would do for you should you retain one for any purpose. He becomes an expert on the law. I don't know if maybe these other counties, if their county attorney maybe didn't do that much research.
So what you're saying is our county attorney is against making our county a 2A sanctuary county. Is that what you're telling us?
No. If I was telling you that, I would tell you that. What I'm telling you is you have a county attorney that is beyond a stickler for the law. I mean, that's all there is to it.
The laws are passed as we expect them to. We're asking, what are our officials going to do? Are they going to follow the law that has been passed in Kentucky? Or are they going to follow the Constitution and our rights and support the citizens of this county.
Which
Which law?
supersedes
We have
Kentucky's
sheriffs
Constitution.
in other states who are willing to stand up and say, I'm not going to do this. I am not going to take away the guns of citizens who have done nothing wrong, who are law-abiding citizens. They stand behind them, full force. So we're asking, what are you guys going to do when this law passes? Are you going to stand behind us and the oath that you took? Or are you going to stand behind our Democratic governor and the laws that he passed that are against the oath that you took?
They're
Not. Are you going to stand behind us? It's simple. Are you going to stand behind us, or are you going to follow the governor's laws of this state? Because he's going to pass them. So we want to know from you where you stand. You stand with us, or do you stand with them?
That's simple.
That's
And
simple.
is that to me or to the body or to
That is
both?
to
That's to
whoever's
the
in charge
court.
of this.
We'll pick it up from here,
Or
Sam.
you, anybody else?
We'll pick it up.
Am I done?
Yeah, let me just say a couple of things. As I started, before we started hearing from you, we're all supporters of the Second Amendment. Even if we weren't supporters of the Second Amendment, we're bound to follow and abide by the Second Amendment. But we are supporters of the Second Amendment. We're supporters of all law. The young lady that talked to us, home rule, said is that a county can choose which laws we want to enforce. We have no choice about which laws we enforce.
It's called discretion. It's like in Louisville.
Not in this law.
Now wait a minute.
Sorry, excuse me, sir, but in Louisville.
Well, excuse me, ma'am. I gave you 25 minutes to talk.
What about me?
Now let
County
me
judge has the floor.
let me try to address it, because I think it's rather simple. And you said earlier the Supreme Court is the supreme law of the land. Certainly is supreme law of the land. And below the Supreme Court is the federal courts, the state courts, and way down in here is the county government. The county government, we as officials have to follow what the law is. And you're saying, what if Governor Beshear or his administration, it'd be the legislature, of course, if they enact a law that's against, you think, and maybe even we think, is against the Constitution, then the thing to do is challenge that law in the state legislature. It is not to try to convince a local government to turn from enforcing the law. As you might imagine, we've got 120 counties. Some would say, hey, I don't like this law. And we could take a vote. Hey, what do y'all think? You like this? You like this law? No, let's not enforce that. We have no authority to do that. Not only do we not have an authority, but you don't want to listen, but we don't have the authority to do it, but we would actually be subject to liability, both criminal and civil ourselves. So, I mean, it's very simple, and I know you're passionate about this, and so I just suggest to you, I'm a lawyer as well. I've been involved with law for a while. I'm a retired circuit judge from here. I'm familiar with law, let's say that. And the place to be doing your argument is not to us, it's to the state legislature, and maybe the governor. We cannot choose what laws we want to enforce, what laws we want to follow, not only because of the statute that says we can't, as specifically as to guns. That's clear as it can be. But there's just a general concept in law that, as you said, the Supreme Court is the supreme law of the land. And so the procedure is you go to the legislature, say, we think this law is unconstitutional. They would have a hearing, determine that they think it is or not, go to court. The court would determine, yes, it is, or no, it's not. It gets appealed. Maybe it lands all the way up, goes all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. And that supreme law of the land would say, yes, it is, or no, it's not. But we deal with local level. I know we're accessible, we're handy. It's, you can get right in here to us, but we have no ability whatsoever to do anything like what y'all are wanting to do. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Clymer?
Uh-huh.
So if the General Assembly of Kentucky passes a law where you have to round up every Jew in McCracken County, take them to an internment camp, you're willing to say, hey, we can't stop them, we're going to do what we're told because the General Assembly passed that law. Is that what you're saying? I mean, this is not just a Second Amendment debate.
I
We're
understand.
talking about the full breadth of our inalienable rights here. Second Amendment merely allows us the way to defend our rights. So when we get to that point where we just defer back, because the prison guards at Auschwitz, they didn't get a bye whenever the world courts came down on them, the military courts come down on them. They were following their orders. They were just doing what they were told. They were the lowly foot soldier. But they still were hung just like, or faced the firing squad, just like their generals and their leaders did.
Well, I mean, the simplest way to put it is a county, this body, has to follow what the law is until the law is changed, and then we follow that law. But we can't pick and choose. I mean, I think
I understand what
follow
you're
that.
saying. I do, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the position you're in. I really do. But we see it all over the place. Immigration laws are neglected. They enforce them as they see fit.
Well, now enforcement might be a different thing. I mean, and I'll tell you, let's look at this map of 90-something counties. That's I'm assuming that's accurate. That's just
It's from Saturday, and there's actually one or two that needs to be added to that from today.
that is incredible.
All those
That
counties.
90 counties
How are they doing
would
it?
ignore their
I guess that's
responsibility to follow the law, but they do. Go ahead.
I'd like to comment too. In a former life, I was a newspaper reporter for 39 years. And one of my assignments was covering the Kentucky General Assembly. And I would guess in probably every session, at least in the last 20 years, there were gun regulation bills and amendments introduced. And other bills and amendments to discuss related to gun control. I only recall 3 bills ever being passed. Number 1 was a bill to give the sole authority of gun control laws to the state legislature, and the county governments could not enact their own gun control laws. And that was pushed by gun advocates because of threats that Louisville and Lexington were going to adopt gun control laws. So the law that forbids us from adopting our own law was pushed by the gun rights people because they didn't want laws in the 2 largest cities to regulate gun control. Another bill that was passed was the concealed carry law. That it took a couple sessions to get that approved, but it eventually was approved that people could conceal carry with a concealed carry permit. The third one was approved last year when the legislature did away with the concealed carry permit law and said you could conceal carry without a permit. And that was passed, I don't remember the exact vote, but it was overwhelmingly passed by the House and by the Senate. One of the pre-filed bills introduced this time was to do away with that law. That was introduced by a liberal senator or liberal legislator from Louisville who is running for the U.S. Senate. And I look back at his record since he's been in the legislature, he has not passed one piece of legislation. So I don't think that's a threat. I also look back over the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, there's been over 100 bills and amendments introduced to regulate guns and gun control. Not one of those bills even got a hearing in a committee, let alone being approved by a committee or sent to the House or Senate floor or even voted on by the House and Senate. They all were killed in committee because they did not get a hearing. Just because a bill is introduced, it doesn't mean it's going to make its way through the legislature. In my observation of the legislature, in a bill like this, it's controversial. It would take 3 or 4 sessions probably to get it approved. So one session might come out of committee and get to the House floor and then die, and next session may come out of the House, the House floor, and be approved by the House and go to the Senate. The lack of movement of this bill and any kind of gun regulations, to me, is an indication the Kentucky legislature in the near future and probably long-term future will not adopt any gun control laws. And if a gun control law is introduced, the ink would not be dry on the bill and law before there'd be a lawsuit filed to contest it. And when a lawsuit would be filed to contest it, they would hold that law in abeyance till it got through the court system. So if there was an immediate threat, then maybe we'd have to at least think about whether or not something could be done. We can maybe explore ways that we could do something. But there is absolutely no threat that the Kentucky legislature is going to adopt any laws to regulate guns. There's been governors in the past, Democratic governors in the past. Even when there was a Democratic legislature, the House and the Senate were Democrats and run by Democrats who would be more inclined to vote for a gun control bill than what the Republicans would. Even then, bills never advanced. The Democrats in Kentucky, for the most part, are conservative, and they understand that the people of Kentucky do not want gun control laws. So I think there is no threat in the immediate future or the long-term future that Kentucky is going to pass any gun control bills. The fact that we're pre-filed bills is not an indication there's going to be any action taken. As I said, I look back over the last 5 years, there were over 100 bills and amendments introduced to bills to try to control gun control. The only votes on those is when they were taken off the table. There was never any vote to try to pass those bills because the legislature didn't allow them. The process is, if I was a legislator and I introduced a bill for gun control in a committee, the committee has to do what they call post it for consideration. It cannot be considered unless the chairman of the committee decides that it should be considered. And not one bill to regulate gun control has ever been posted in committee. They've died in the House committee, they've died in the Senate committee. So my point is there's no immediate threat that anything's going to happen, either in the short term or long term future. And I agree with the judge, and I think it was good on the opening day of the legislature, or the second day, there was a rally up there of this statewide group to express their views. And that's where it needs to be done, taken care of. We cannot, as the judge mentioned, we cannot pick and choose which laws we enforce and don't enforce. We all probably have laws we don't like and we don't think are constitutional. Some would argue, for example, a seatbelt law is a violation of somebody's freedoms and things like that. So we all probably have laws that we don't like, but we can't determine as a fiscal court which ones are constitutional and which ones are not constitutional. We have to go through the court system. If we were to adopt something and instruct our sheriff and the sheriff deputies not to enforce a gun control law, for example, there's a law that says a student at a high school cannot have a gun in their car in the parking lot. Suppose we adopt this law and determine we can't enforce it because the fiscal court adopted a sanctuary law, and that kid gets mad in the middle of the day over something, goes out in his car, gets a gun and shoots somebody. We're open for liability, and our sheriff's office would be open for liability because they didn't enforce the law. So we can't pick and choose the ones we enforce and don't enforce. We just have to see what happens in the future. But again, I will be long in my grave before Kentucky ever makes any serious effort to pass a gun control law. We've had 2 high school shootings in our state, and if you think there'd be motivation to do it, to pass those kinds of laws, that would be motivation. But even after the shooting in Marshall County, after the shooting in Heath, there was no serious effort to regulate gun control. So again, I appreciate the efforts that are being made. I appreciate everybody's involvement, and we'll just keep to monitoring it. And I would say contact your local legislators and go to Frankfurt, and that's the place it needs to be taken care of.
You want to say something?
Yeah, I'd just say a little bit, and I may sound a little slurred. I went to the dentist before this meeting. But despite that, I want to make this expression. I may sound like Fat Albert, but bear with me. I've talked to each of these gentlemen. I can tell you that each of us believe in the Second Amendment. Each of us believe in Anthony Scalia's opinion of that individual right expressed in the Heller opinion in 2008. Each of us believe in the comma that's in the Second Amendment. And each of us believe that the best deterrent to a dumb guy with a gun is a smart guy with a gun, which is why I sit as close to him as I can. Craig Clymer and Sam Clymer know more about guns and have more guns and hunt more than anybody I know and that I hang around with. And I appreciate, Sam, you taking the hard position. It'd be easy to just ignore KRS 65.870. And I encourage all of us. You saw me on my phone. I was Googling it to make sure how available it was. Google that. KRS 65.870, and then ask yourself if it took a little courage to actually tell us about that statute and give us that opinion. And Sam, I think it did, and thank you for that courage. Sanctuaries. Expand that, and as Commissioner Bartleman was saying, it's a, I don't want to say it's a trend, but we saw it first in cities that weren't going to enforce immigration. And if we follow this, where could it then go? Could we become a sanctuary city that decides that we're not going to enforce drunk driving, other laws? It ends up becoming a situation in which we simply are not acting decently and in order. And that's something that was prescribed to us by the Apostle Paul, that we do all things decently and in order. We believe in the Second Amendment, but we also believe in the law, and we need to follow the law. I want to thank each of you, though, because you have expressed your First Amendment rights just exactly as I suggested. You have done it decently and in order, and I thank you for that.
I'd like to yield my time to these two guys with their hands up, because I'm a strong Second Amendment supporter. I've got guns, and then I'd hate to see somebody try to take them away, but go ahead, sir.
Well, my name's Stephen Baylor. I know Mr. Parker. I've known Mr. Clymer and his family for years. I know Mr. Barton. I understand your position and your liability, but I've got one example. Does the county have to, are they regulated by the same laws to uphold federal law?
Yes.
I mean, if there's a federal law out there, the county's supposed to uphold it, just like you say you're talking about now?
All right.
Okay. My question is, Mr. Bashir has made a comment about legalizing marijuana. The state, like the state of Illinois, they passed marijuana law, making it legal in the state of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. But you know, and I know, it's still illegal under federal law.
Yep.
Would you enforce that law? Would you be like Illinois and the rest of the state, just let the pot shops open up, sell to everybody and anybody? I mean, that's just a straight up question. Because I know you can't pick or choose the laws you enforce.
That's why I mentioned to the gentleman a while ago, enforcement is another thing. For some reason, the federal government's sitting back and allowing states to not follow the federal law. And for some reason, the federal law makers are letting them do it.
Just because federal law lays back don't mean your county law should lay back. If it's a law being broke, it should be enforced.
Well, we are.
I mean, just because the federal government's give up on it, even though it's illegal under the federal government, then, like the state of Illinois, that's what they've done. Their counties have laid back and said, okay, federal government don't care, I don't care. But when you say you can't pick and choose, when you lay back like that, then what are you doing? You're picking and choosing.
Well, we don't here.
Only thing they're asking you to do is, we know you're not going to go against the law. They're just maintaining, what they want is just to know that you back them, you passed a resolution. You're not going to go against state statute. All that's doing is showing that you support the citizens of McCracken County for what they stand for.
Well, let me say this. if we start passing resolutions saying we're going to follow the law on as to guns, as the Second Amendment, then why shouldn't we pass a law saying we're going to support this law and that law? We support all laws because, not just because we want to, and if we didn't want to, we still would have
Well, I'm
to.
just asking that question. I mean,
Yeah.
all it is a show of support.
Well, and it's a show of support. You heard the statute that says we can't do it. And it's really meaningless for a county government. Now, wait a minute. It's really meaningless for a county government to say we support that state law or that federal law if we are mandated and required to do it anyway. I mean, it might be, Steve, like you saying, I'm going to do what my wife tells me to do.
Always did.
You got to anyway.
If you're a smart man, you would. Thank you, Mr. Fine.
All right.
In my name is Steve Riles. I spent the better part of my adulthood in the newspaper business myself.
You might have to come up, sir, if you would. I can't hardly hear.
I spent the better part of my adult in the newspaper business. First, I appreciate you taking the time and letting us speak tonight, because I've seen too many meetings that I have covered myself where issues like this came up, and it was a predetermined situation. We would have never come in the ring. And I appreciate y'all allowing us this opportunity. Based off what I've heard and based off my experiences, I've heard two things. One, if the county attorney said, we're for it, I'm going to make the assumption this would be a moot issue. Two, if what you're telling us is it is his opinion, as a lawyer and judge yourself, that this is not lawful. And I don't speak for anybody because I just have to see this on the internet. But I am a very firm believer in the Second Amendment, First Amendment, and I've sworn my whole life there's three important words that we don't realize that we've realized, we the people. And I'm new to McCracken County, but a population of 65,000, give or take, I'd say this is 1% of the population. And this is 1% that have come together in less than a week's time. So as an organization, as individuals, if we got an opinion from the Attorney General, and he said, by all means, the counties themselves are lawful to make this decision, are we looking then at a different scenario?
Did you say are you saying the Attorney General said?
No, I'm just asking a question.
The Attorney General is no way is he going to say this can be done.
Just a statement.
If the Attorney General said that we can do what?
If the Attorney General gave an opinion and said the county's asking to be sanctuary cities or sanctuary Second Amendment sanctuaries is legal, are we looking at a different scenario here?
No, because the Attorney General opinion is not law. The statutes and case law or the law, it's the Attorney General's opinion. He can give an opinion, or she, is what does the Attorney General believe, is this lawful? I don't, and so we follow the law, and the law is the statute until it changes.
We asked if we had enough signatures petitioned for this to actually come as a vote.
What now?
If we had enough signatures on a petition, could we, as McCracken County residents, ask for this to come up as a vote of the people?
A vote of this body?
Yes, sir. Whether it's a vote of the body or a public vote.
No.
Who in the public is going to take full responsibility for those lawsuits? I don't want somebody suing me personally.
I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I just know in my 15 years of journalism, I have not seen a group of this size that were not in a meeting for something that wasn't positive.
And we appreciate this group. We really do.
I've seen it come when New Orleans decided to take down Confederate statues, and I lived in Beauregard Parish, and some of the parish wanted PGT Beauregard to come to the parish, and it was an overflow crowd. And that wasn't for a good issue. And I've seen a city council meeting where we had a duly elected city councilman, after he was sworn in, that somebody raised the question that he wasn't qualified. So, you know, this is a good percentage of the people. I mean, and we appreciate the role you serve and what you do.
Well, there's 65,000 people in the county. We're short of that a bit, but
65 people, 50?
okay. Well, here's the situation, I think, and we can consult with the county attorney and see. I think that we're even getting into a dangerous position when we even entertain a vote on it myself, but we can look into that. But I think even taking a vote would constitute an action involving the regulation, even if it's a negative action. It's an action. And I will do this. I'll consult with the county attorney and see if he believes we should take a vote, if we can take a vote. A vote, however, and of course, I know how the vote would go. It would be that we can't do that because we've got a statute and all the things we've just been saying. But I just don't think it would be wise for us to even take a vote. What we wanted to do is out of respect for a group, substantial group of people, and all of you are not here. There's many out there that, for whatever reason, didn't show up. We know that. But to give you the opportunity to present what you wanted to. And as I said at the beginning of this meeting, that is contrary to our position in general, because this is our business meeting where we discuss and try to decide things among ourselves. And so we don't offer at a initial meeting the opportunity for folks to give their opinion, because we need to form up what we think we should do.
And that's appreciative, because I've seen many meetings where this would have been squashed, and it would have never made the door. So I appreciate your time in allowing us to voice our opinion.
I just so strongly wish you would take your energy and your passion and take it to the state legislature where you can.
I've already been working with people in Frankfurt, but we have to deal with this. The lady that I've been talking to, she's actually secretary in the district in the northern part of Kentucky for the Republican Party. She works with the Attorney General Cameron. Mm-hmm. And she walked me through this entire process. And we have to start this on a state level. And what a resolution does, literally, is just an agreement between us. It's a form of referendum communicating that you're communicating to us that you're standing by us, and you standing by us is communicating to Frankfurt, because there's 7 bills that are on the floor right now in judiciary. They're trying to get them to pass, and until they pass for a vote, they're going to sit there dormant. Okay? And there's 7 bills that is without a doubt an infringement on our rights. Bill 192 is the assault weapons ban that Donahue, like you said, is in Democrat in Louisville, which is the only county that had to take action because that's his county. The bill is so broad in scope and so vague, it literally includes every single modern day weapon in your arsenal, my arsenal. Everybody's here except for a handgun that weighs 50 ounces or less with now 9 rounds or less.
Yeah,
or if it's a muzzle loader.
I started reading through it and I got tired.
It's insane.
That bill has absolutely no chance of even getting a committee hearing.
I understand that, sir, but right now, unless it goes through for a vote, while it sits in judiciary, it's going to sit there dormant until it actually goes up for a vote, and that's when it gets killed.
It will not get up for a vote. It will not even get up to the committee for a debate and discussion. I guarantee you that. It will not even.
Well, right now we've got an overwhelming support that when it goes for a vote, it is going to be shot down.
It won't go for a vote.
Well, regardless of who votes what, we can't do a thing about it here. And I understand you're saying, well, it would just say that we provide support for what you're trying to do. We can't take any action on that one way or another. And we've said, I think all of us have agreed that we support the second amendment. And I think that's about all we can do. We support the second, first, all the amendments. We're just all about them.
And I'll make a commitment that I'll write a letter to our legislators opposing that bill.
We'll be
Personally,
there
just
on the 13th.
me as a county commissioner, me as an individual citizen, I'll write a letter opposing that bill.
Will you go rally with us on Frankfurt on the 31st?
On the
It was a lot of
31st.
fun at rally.
January 31st from 9 to 4.
Well, let me check
Come
my
on,
schedule.
commit to us.
Well, let me check
Now,
my
you
schedule.
guys, y'all four up there.
When's the invitation?
Will go with us and
Friday.
stand with us then. If you won't pass the resolution, commit to us that you'll go at least stand beside us at the rally in Frankfurt.
What date is it?
It's July 31st
This
from 9
Friday. This Friday.
Yeah, thank you.
This Friday.
Yeah, this Friday from 9 to 3 Eastern Standard Time in Frankfurt.
That's not a good day to do it because the legislature adjourns. They'll be gone by 10 o'clock.
We'll be there at 9 o'clock, and there's a couple of senators that's actually going to talk.
Well, we've gone about 55 minutes on
Thank you
on
for
this
that.
project.
I appreciate it.
All right. Good luck to you.
So, all right.
Thanks, Shay.
All right. We got Mr. Wilcox, Bruce Wilcox, here to address us. SSDC. Randy.
Hey, Dave, I didn't see you.
Good evening, Judge Clymer.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and start, or you want to wait just a minute?
Wait
or
just a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's go.
All right. Good evening, Judge Clymer, Commissioners, Deputy Judge Executive Doolittle, everyone. Thank you for allowing Greater Paducah Economic Development to have some time on this evening's agenda to share and provide an update on some of our fourth quarter of 2019's activity. We greatly appreciate our partnership with McCracken County, and we appreciate your support. Without your support, we couldn't do what we do. The fourth quarter of 2019 was very active. In conjunction with the Forward Paducah Plan, Heather Pierce, our project manager, and I completed or participated in 85 activities specific to the plan. In addition to other meetings and events, during the fourth quarter, we attended a statewide symposium sponsored by the Kentucky Association for Economic Development. We made a visit to Frankfurt, attended regional economic development meetings, Paducah McCracken Riverport meetings, toured the Big Rivers Electric Power Plant in Seabury. I attended a community trip to Oak Ridge, Tennessee to view the reindustrialization of the progress Oak Ridge has made on reindustrializing the deactivated gaseous diffusion plant. And I attended a site selector forum in Chicago, just to name a few. And while not in the fourth quarter, we had our first Governmental Affairs Committee meeting the first week of January, and I think Commissioner Parker would say that was probably a pretty good meeting. And we're looking forward to our next meeting, hopefully the first or second week of February. In the month of November, we were awarded the Great River Cup Award by Site Selection Magazine. Site Selection Magazine is an international publication with over 48,000 readers. We received the award as being the top metro area along the Ohio River based upon an index of corporate facility investment and job creation per capita based upon Site Selection Magazine's database. And as many of you have seen, we recently were featured in the Lane Report where they featured our momentum and how we're poised for growth in 2020. Since our last Investor Council meeting in mid-year 2019, we've had a total of 8 new projects. We currently have 12 projects in the pipeline. These projects range from startup with 10 to 15 new jobs, all the way up to 600 employees and a projected $1 billion in projected capital expenditures. The age of these projects range all the way back, one of them going back to the year 2012, 2013, that's recently gotten some interest and some activity, all the way up to one transaction project that we were notified of today. And I'll go over these projects with you as we go into closed or executive session due to the nature and the sensitivity of the confidential information. So we're really excited about the expansion opportunities that we have before us in 2020. Since the last presentation, Dippin' Dots has announced a $3.3 million expansion with 30 new full-time jobs. This is a 6,000 square foot addition to a cryogenically produced meat-based plant product. The accident they had last month put them a little bit behind on construction, but they're on target now to have the project completed in the year 2020, this year. So as we talk to them, we believe there's even the possibility for some additional growth and more jobs above what they have now. We're working with another local manufacturer on the expansion of a paint facility with 2 new product lines and a new building that's expected to be in excess of $2 million. That's projected to be completed in the year 2021. That's 100 new jobs. We're also working with another local company on an expansion project, relocating some jobs from another state, approximating $1 million that will add another 14 jobs to our community. And as many of you have seen in the paper, Kentucky Care recently had a groundbreaking. That's a $3 million new facility out on the south side that will add 6 additional new jobs in the medical field. And we've also worked with a private investor regarding $3 million of new capital investment in apartments or condominiums in the downtown area. There have been several other community wins as well. While we weren't directly involved with the city or the county's receipt of the $10.4 million build grant, it's important to note the importance that this has on our community and the impact that it has in telling our story. It's really exciting when we're talking with prospective companies about all of the growth and the opportunity that we have, not to mention the possible expansion of the Barkley Regional Airport construction. That just adds to the excitement. We are aware of upwards of $100 million of potential new capital investment in our community in the next 24 to 36 months. So it's an exciting time to be living in our community. As you know, we recently successfully brokered the extension of Teletech's lease in the Commerce Park between the City of Paducah and McCracken County and Teletech. This is in the finalization stages of the lease extension. I believe it's on your agenda this evening. This will ensure Teletech's presence in Paducah for another 5 years. And if you'll recall, back in October, Teletech announced 100 new additional jobs. They vacated the property at 401 Kentucky Avenue to consolidate their operations out in the Commerce Park. The building's currently empty, but we've listed it for sale and/or lease, and we're currently working with a prospective company regarding backfilling that space and an expansion project there. We successfully negotiated the purchase of the Madro property at the Triple Rail site. This property was secured with PACRO proceeds through McCracken County, and as you are aware, McCracken County is now the proud owner of those 7 acres there at the Triple Rail site. We also refinanced $1.6 million with our KEDFA note for another 5 years, and we paid off a small PACRO note. While we were attending the December KEDFA meeting, I also had the privilege of meeting our new interim Secretary of Economic Development, Larry Hayes. And over the past couple of weeks, I've had some correspondence and had the privilege of talking with the new Commissioner for Business Development, Jeff Taylor. We really look forward to working with our new partners in Frankfurt in the coming months. And we're working with 2 prospective parties now interested in the Genova facility. Most of you are aware, it's been in the media about one potential new prospect. We've actually met with another prospect late last week. So both parties are interested in reestablishing production and increasing production and distribution out of Paducah. While I was in Chicago attending the Site Selector Forum, I met some site selectors and I saw a presentation from Site Selection Magazine where they identified the top 5 industries poised for growth in 2020. They're distribution and logistics, advanced manufacturing, food processing, biomedical and healthcare, and data centers. While I won't be going over all of our assets. I think all of you are familiar with the assets that we have available to market, and I think you would agree with me that our assets match up pretty well with those top 5 industries. Another top takeaway from Site Selector Forum was that I heard about the importance of having one voice in our community and being unified in our approach. There are over 30,000 municipal or sub-municipal organizations and over 15,000 economic development organizations in the United States, and we're all going after the same deals and the same opportunities. It's not necessarily site selection, it's site elimination. So that's why it's critically important for us to have great relationships with our city, our county, our ED organization, and the media. We all need to be working together to do our part to promote the good news, attributes, and opportunities with our community. Long story short, bad press kills deals. So we need to have a positive, unified message. As we move forward into 2020, you can expect to see updating our maps, marketing materials, signage, website, and better positioning our assets for market. My intention is to participate in the Kentucky United Site Selector Tours beginning in March, running through December, where the goal is to get in front of numerous site selectors and start developing those relationships. You'll also see additional engagement with existing industry as we enhance our business retention and expansion programs. Heather Pierce is already working with the City of Paducah's Business Development Officer on joint business retention and expansion calls. And you'll probably see us more engaged as well with the Chamber of Commerce as the Chamber enhances its workforce development initiatives. So we're excited about the opportunities before us in 2020, and we look forward to achieving great things. Out of respect of everyone's time, I'll end now, hoping that you know there's a lot of other good work going on, and I'll open up for questions or comments from you, or we can go over more information in closed session as we go over the projects.
Okay, then.
I just want to say thank you. This is the reports and the reports we've been wanting. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. I did all that. I think things are shaping up. I think, as you know, we're going to take up trying to look at our revenues here in the county here in just a few minutes, and hopefully we can play a stronger part in developing the county economically as we go along. We've got a good partner in GPED, I think.
We enjoy working with you. So.
Going in the right direction.
Let's keep her going that way.
That's right.
Thank you.
I address this, Bob, please?
About what, sir?
About some of the work that has been happening through your economic development district and stuff?
No, sir. No. We can address you individually by. I'll be glad to talk to you. Come to my office, or if you want to write us, meet with any of us individually. But this is the time that we spend to try to talk among ourselves and decide what we're going to do.
In your meeting 2 weeks ago, you delayed making a decision on.
I said no, sir. I said no. Thank you. All right, we've got, let's see, what are we on next? The outside agency funding. I think that we've had this now maybe five times.
4 or 5.
Sounds like 12, but it's only 4 or 5.
Is it a 5-inning game or a 9-inning game?
I mean, it shows that we're struggling with it. Comes, I guess, on the heels of the Second Amendment group. We could say it's time we pulled the trigger on this thing. But I asked Vicki to put this compilation of where each of us are, at least in addressing it once again. You've got that compilation here. All 4 of us have put on each of these items what we think should be done. I will admit that I reached some level of frustration, and so after we batted it around 3 or 4 times, I said maybe to get this done. And since we are deficit spending, as this county has done for so many years, that we have to make some cuts, I think, against the backdrop of where we are financially, and perhaps we, frankly, it'd be justified, or it's hard to justify putting money to outside agencies at all, except they provide some really valuable services that we've already talked over 3 or 4 times before. I wanted to throw out this possibility just to see if maybe we could agree on something, given again, and I'm going to go through and we'll talk more about our financial condition. I was just sitting here as I was listening to some of the presentations. Our totals on here average $112,000. The 154.5, 135.5, 70, and 87.750. If you just take that total bottom line through there, average them $112,000. I think that maybe it would be as good as any outcome to say that we would take that $112,000 and pass it to these agencies in an amount consistent with averaging across the line for each one of them. I mean, just like, I don't know, I say there's Lone Oak, well, let's just do the civil beautification there at the bottom line. So $750 plus $1,000 plus $750, what's that, $2,500? Divide that by 4. What's that? 600 something. $625, I think. That's an expedient way of getting it done. I can't say it, but we've tried to micromanage or micro and analyze, I guess, all these things, and they're all worthy. That's just a way of getting it done. But we can open it up. Whatever y'all got better ideas. Is there a strong reason why we would not consider doing that?
See, I guess you're suggesting we take, I guess you could take the total that was given and 112,000, what's the percentage of that, and everybody gets that percentage? Is that?
Well, I think it hadn't really occurred to me till just when I was sitting here, and I think it follows that we've got a bucket of $112,000, and we would just at each line we would average each line and give to that entity the average. Because like I said, civic beautification, I think it's.
So you're saying the average of the 4 of us?
Yeah, average of the 4 of us, and gives civic beautification that average, which was whatever I said, 750. That's 1,500 plus 1,000, 2,500 divided by 4 gives us the average, and that's what we get. It's not really. It's a result of us not being able to get to a bottom line so far, and I think this is our 5th time we've tried it. Maybe it's only our 4th.
I think it's our 4th, and I guess I'm going to be the guy that may upset the apple cart, but I mean, in light of talking about insurance, taxes, things like that, if we're deficit spending, I'd just soon not spend anything right now. I mean, let's kick the can another 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and
I don't want to. I'm not. You know, y'all can.
I know that's not your favorite what you want to hear,
yeah,
but
yeah, 6 times.
Yeah,
I think 5 times. You're going to have to beat up on me to have me ever put this back on the agenda this year. We're already starting the budget for next year, and we haven't given them anything. Well, I'm not a can kicker. I'm a trigger puller.
Well, I'm not a can kicker either, but if we're deficit spending, I don't see spending another $112,000 right at.
Well, don't give any of them anything. Is that what we want to do?
I don't think that's the answer either. I mean, there's some projects out there like the youth baseball, softball association, stuff like that, that I think eventually we'll try to find them some money, but let's see where we land.
Well, that's where we've been trying to.
So your approach would give Reedland 6875, each of those almost.
I mean, it's a matter of really, and of course, I sent out that thing, how much do you want to give to whoever? How much do you, and how much do you, and how much do I? And so we all got our figures here. It's a matter of compromise of saying, okay, and of course, some of us wanted to give a lot more than others, so there's a wide spread. Just like in one of these, the community scholarship, I was at 63, Commissioner Parker's at 75.
I'm
one
at
of you was
zero.
at none. Yeah, you were at none, and Bill, we got a double question mark.
I did that because we were scheduled a meeting with them. I had a meeting scheduled to meet with them.
You got a figure now?
I'm not sure I do yet. I don't know. I can come
Well,
up with
now's the time.
Yeah, I guess my approach was, as I looked at it, is like, what am I going to borrow money? Which of these would I be willing to borrow money to give to? Because that's what we're doing. We're borrowing the money to give to them. Mm-hmm. And so I looked for the organizations that have volunteers that are going to provide a service between now and June 30th. And that was my rationale. Just. Mm-hmm.
I guess my viewpoint is on these, we have to determine what the need is on each of these and who they impact. I think, for example, the Community Scholarship Program, I have an idea for an alternative way of funding that. I don't want to discuss that publicly right now, but I think there's an alternative way we might be able to fund some or all of that.
You want to discuss it?
Well, we can.
This is on. You think you need
I
a
think
executive session?
Okay, for the community scholarship, I think we ought to approach the library board to help fund that. The library has over $4 million in excess funds. The scholarship program is an educational program that's part of the mission of the library. So I think we ought to ask the library board to help fund that program. And there's other organizations. I think it was the Civil Air Patrol. When they appeared before us, we asked them what they would do if they didn't get funds. They said, well, we'll just have to go out and raise it from private sources. All right, so what's the decision to be made on that one? The McCracken County, the Senior Citizen Center, if I read their tax return right, they have, I don't remember what the figure is now, they have well over $1 million in surplus funding. I don't know if that's earmarked for something or what, but that they have a substantial amount of money. The Civic Beautification Board, is that the county civic or the city beautification board?
No, we don't. Yeah,
and we need to know what the Civic Beautification Board is doing right now. I mean, I think at one time they were active and they did House of the Month and things like that. And I don't know.
They do our Christmas decorations too.
I mean, it's not a lot of money, but I mean it.
Yeah, it's well, I don't know. I think we got something from. I thought we did. Yeah, there they are. Just thumb through that for a while. I think there's a bottom line in there somewhere. Yeah. But I mean, they're at what they asked for. What was their ask? I don't have the ask right. 1,500.
Right.
Oh, 1,500. I don't know so what about if we go through here? I don't know. I just want to get something done on it. So say on the community scholarship.
I would say the community scholarship, we've approached the library board and asked them to fund part of all of that.
Okay.
Any discussion on that? I mean, is that a bad idea, a good idea, or isn't that part of the mission?
You
If
get
I
them to do
remember,
it, that's a
they're
great
going to help
idea.
us with CASA, with the Sprocket. Weren't they going to help fund that?
What would your thinking be if we got, I'm just going to call first names because that's how it's listed here. We got Bill at, you want the library, so you want no money from us. Eddie's at no, Jeff's at 75, and I'm at 63 on the community scholarship. What if we average the 63 and 75, put that amount in and ask the library for the balance of it? Or I'll even ask the library, even though we say we'll do that amount, will the library pay that full ask for the community scholarship? And if they won't, we would do the average of 75 and 63, whatever that is, $138,000. The average being 70,000 roughly.
Well,
No, not
divided by
average.
four.
No, divided by 4, so it's 35,000, I think. What about that? I mean, I'm just trying to get this thing done, obviously. I could, I'll go to the library and say, we voted to give them 35, but we really don't have it. Would you consider, since the community scholarship, it's a school, it's a WKCTC, it's a library-related type of agency, would you do it? And then we don't have to pay our $35,000. And just go down through here, doing these averages. We can talk about. If you haven't gathered by now, I'm ready to get something done on this.
Yeah. I don't object to your plan. I just want to make it clear that the reason I'm voting no on that at 0 is because I don't want to borrow money for it.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to do the
We'll be
average.
borrowing money for all these, really. I mean, well, we'll be paying them out of our reserve. We're borrowing out of our savings to do it. And our savings are not good.
We will be spending below our safe reserve.
Yeah. Give me a better way to go about it. You want to just go down through here and we'll check them off and.
Yeah, I guess my thought is those things that are going to gear up in the spring and not function without our money, I think we should really decide tonight. And that would be the youth soccer, the baseball, and the softball. And I guess the tennis.
Well,
Make a motion.
so I move that we distribute up to $112,000 to the outside agencies on this list, consistent with an average of the 4 of us, the money the amounts that we put for each agency. I don't know how that writes
Can
out, but
I
it
comment
sounds
on the
good.
community scholarship?
Okay.
I met with the community scholarship, their representatives, was it last week, because I had some questions about the amount they had in the bank, and they explained the program. I kind of have a new understanding of part of that. What they do is the money they raise this year will fund students who are in the 8th grade right now. So if they don't have enough money of what their analysis is to pay all the tuition of the 8th graders, they will tell the 8th graders this year that we're not going to fund your program. So I think it's an important program. There's several things I wish they did differently on it, but and I think they know that there's some concerns about some of the things in the way they run it. On that one, I would like us to approach the library board to see if they would help fund that, and then maybe, at least on that one, come back to it later on when we find out what the library will do or won't do.
Was there a second to my motion or not?
So I'll second the motion.
Okay.
And and say I like your amendment.
Pardon me?
Okay.
But I like Commissioner Bartleman's amendment, so if you make that
Okay.
amendment, I'll second that amendment.
I mean, that really doesn't work because I had two of these I had question marks on because I had more questions about them, so.
What doesn't
Why don't we go down through them and see what we can agree on, see what the total comes to, and then see what the issue is.
Well, we got a second to my motion, but did you want to amend it?
I don't know, I don't amend it, I just don't want to vote on it right now.
Well,
I wish we could go down through.
We're going to vote on it.
I wish we could go down through each one and decide how much we
Okay.
want to give each organization because.
I know what you wish.
Yeah. I'd rather
There's a
decide.
motion and there's a second. Any more discussion about it?
So I would move that we amend your motion and take out the community scholarship from that, and we decide that individually at a later date with more information.
Okay. All right. Is there a second to the
Second.
amendment? Okay, but so the amended motion is to do the average math, but with there being 0 on community scholarship, and ask the library to fund that.
Yeah, so
Is your motion not to exceed 112,000?
well, I would change the 112 because then that changes our average. So then I think what your motion was is basically to award the average of each amount, right?
Yeah.
So if that's
Well, it'd be up to 112, but I mean, I don't know, if we want to do the math, then we pull out the money for the community scholarship.
yeah, so it won't be in the 112.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Other than the community scholarship, then your motion is that we allocate the average of every other organization from what we have before selected. Is that what your motion is? Okay.
Yeah.
I
And
can go
that's
along.
what it's Eddie's amended.
And whatever that comes out to, I mean,
Yeah.
it'll be less than 112, but.
All right.
Okay, I can support that.
All right, any other discussion on that?
So this is on the amendment.
Can I ask a
Yep.
question?
Okay.
Okay, what's the two amounts on the scholarship?
63,000 and 75,000. And so the average of that, 138,000 would be
And divide by 4.
68,000, I think.
And the average would be, let's see, that's.
68,000, I think. You got
69,000 would be the average.
69?
Yeah.
Okay,
But anyway, we're taking that off the table.
right. So in effect, we would take,
Is that divided by 4 or divided by 2?
It would be divided.
No,
by
yeah,
4.
right, I divided by 2, so that's.
oh, I'm sorry.
So that's wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're taking, that's
Well,
not
we're
an issue
taking it
because
off.
We're taking that out of the
I'm
equation.
gonna-
Right, but I need the amount to lower the 112 by.
Well,
35,000,
what
right?
we're doing though is funding the average of every other organization, whatever it comes out to, whether it's 100,000 or 80,000 or whatever.
Right, so we're
I can go along with doing the average of
Okay,
every other
so-
organization.
So we take out community scholarship
Right.
completely, whatever the amount that is.
We don't really need the 112,000 in the motion.
No, that's why it says up to, but
That's fine. But again, we're
we
doing,
understand that the community scholarship's out of it.
right.
They either get money to the library or they don't get anything at all.
well, we'll come back.
We'll come back and visit it.
Or we're gonna come back.
So we need to amend the motion to take out the community scholarship average
Yes,
from figure.
We haven't approved that. That's an amendment we haven't approved. yet.
Right, but that's what you want the amendment to say, correct?
right,
Okay.
okay. Any further discussion on the amendment? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, that carries then. So that gets us done through this entire list then, with the exception of the community scholarship. And we'll come back on that if the library says no, I guess. So.
We
Okay?
need another vote. We voted on
We
the
have to
amendment.
vote
now
the amended motion.
Now
The
you need to
amended.
vote on the motion.
We have to vote on the motion as
Oh, okay,
amended.
all right, so vote on the motion then. Any more discussion?
Again, just for clarification, we're going to average each of those, and that's what we're going to fund,
Yep.
right? So if it averages, if there's, okay. I'm good with that. I just want to make sure I understand.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, that carries. We got that done with the exception of the community scholarship. All right. Now, let's see, where are we? Old business. 5A.
You ready? Okay. It is ordered that the county judge executive is authorized to execute the First Amendment to lease agreement, project site, Paducah Commerce Park, Teletech, between the City of Paducah and County of McCracken and Teletech Services Corporation, which amends the Teletech lease for one additional term of 5 years.
Motion?
So this is on the table.
This is on the table.
Yeah.
It was on the table from
back
last week.
sometime.
Yes.
I guess technically maybe we needed a motion to remove it from the table, but either way, there it is.
Yeah, I just didn't want to hurt, I don't think you'll have to read everything again because you read it all last time. It's on the table, but. Okay.
I'm lost, but go ahead.
I want to leave it on the table for another 2 weeks. I think we've got to finalize some things. This was reported by Bruce Wilcox.
What, anything you want?
The lease agreement has been sent to both the city and the county. We've got the city's last verbiage. We need to finalize, I guess, the county's thought on that, send it back to the attorney, and then send it to Teletech to have their legal counsel review. So, in substance, they've agreed to what, we agreed to going forward. They've been paying their rent and their current on that, so it's just a matter of finalizing the document.
I think what's left undone, and we can, I don't think there's anything in the lease that we need to change, but I think we've got to finalize the agreement between the city and the county as to how we move forward with that particular property. And so I don't want to authorize that to be final until we've got that piece final as well.
That's not in this, but that's a piece of the puzzle. It's a separate agreement.
Interlocal agreement, right?
Yes. So I don't know.
So Bruce, is there a downside to us passing this for another 2 weeks?
Not at all.
Okay. Well, we're good at passing things.
Well, I actually like the verbiage that you had. I think it was left open for the county judge executive to have the authority to execute the contract. So with that verbiage in there, you can execute the contract when the verbiage is finalized.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd need to, for me to vote yes, I'd have to see that verbiage, but I'm just 1/4.
Yeah, it's been reviewed by the city manager as well as the deputy judge.
So your motion is to leave it on the table?
Yeah, I don't know if that requires a motion, but that's what I wanted done. So
Well, I don't know. It's on the agenda, so.
I move that we table it for 2 weeks. How's that?
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, that carries. Remain tabled for 2 weeks. Then we got some court orders.
It is ordered to approve payment to the Board of Assessment Appeals in the amount of $400, of which $200 will be reimbursed by the state of Kentucky.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is ordered that $52,426.81 from the transient room tax escrow fund be transferred to the City of Paducah for bond payment on the Convention Center Series 2017.
So moved.
Second. Anybody?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is hereby ordered that pursuant to KRS 72.45 and McCracken County Ordinance Number 2016-11, the sum of $4,214.49 be transferred from the McCracken County Indigent Burial Cremation Funds account into the McCracken County General Fund. Said sum represents the amount of funds recovered by the county, no probate case of record, for use in the recoupment of the county's indigent burial cremation contribution on behalf of the decedent and the payment of the remaining balance due to Milner and Orr Funeral Home in the amount of $1,395 for services in relation to the same.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion?
I like these kind of ordinances.
You do like them?
Yeah.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries. Board appointments.
It is ordered that Diane Shrewsbury be and is reappointed to the Board of Adjustment with a term expiring January the 30th, 2024, and subject to further orders of the court.
So made.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is ordered that Dee Feltz is appointed to the PADD Aging Committee to fulfill the term of Roger Truitt, who recently resigned, and which expires on June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is ordered that Sheila Johnson be reappointed to the McCracken County Humane Society Board with a term expiring January 1st, 2024, subject to further orders of the court.
So made.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'd like the Humane Society to come meet with us and kind of give us an update on what's going on out there and how things are going. Can we arrange that at one of our future meetings?
Yeah.
Because we give them a lot of money, we just need to update the same.
We're in the process of negotiating a new did that expire, Steve, already? January, didn't it? Or earlier in the month? Yeah, so we're going to be...
I'm glad to hear that as part of the motivation.
Yeah, okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, no. It carries. All right, ordinances.
So you ready for me to read it?
Yes.
Okay. It is ordered that pursuant to KRS Chapter 67, the public reading of ordinance number 2020-01 shall be conducted in summary format as follows. McCracken County, Kentucky, McCracken County Fiscal Court, ordinance number 2020-1, an ordinance imposing an insurance premium tax upon insurance companies for the privilege of conducting insurance business within McCracken County, Kentucky. The action taken in the present ordinance is authorized by KRS 91A.080 and operates to create a tax of 8% on the premiums received by insurance companies doing business in McCracken County. The imposition of this tax is a direct result of financial circumstances originating and perpetuating prior to the composition of the present McCracken County Fiscal Court, as well as the extraordinary and ongoing financial burden placed upon McCracken County due to the Commonwealth of Kentucky pension crisis. Creation of a new stream of governmental revenue is a critical component to the commitment of the present McCracken County Fiscal Court to meet all immediate and subsequent financial obligations of the county without resorting to significant budgetary and personnel reconfigurations that would degrade the quality and quantity of essential county government services that the citizens depend on, including, but not limited to, emergency response services, road maintenance, infrastructure repair and improvements, various services provided in conjunction with other governmental and non-governmental partners.
All right. I got Steve D and Steve E to fix up a board here that I thought would maybe help guide us through the discussion. And of course, we want to hear from everybody. We put in the 8% as a starting point to recognize that there may not be the support to get to the 8%. I hope that there is. You guys, can y'all can't see that good.
We can move out there.
Huh?
We can move out there so everybody can see.
Well, okay. So why is revenue needed? We've spent from savings for over a decade. 10 years we've, our administration has spent money that we really didn't have, either from savings or reserves. for a period of 10 years. I'm not saying that the projects were not worthy of being purchased or service provided. It's a matter of just the money was spent without addressing the mechanism by which to replace the money that was spent. Had $8.6 million in 2011 in reserves being our savings account. In 2009, went to 767,000 was our low. 767 was in October of 2018. So we've got a $30 million budget. We need to have a substantial amount of reserves to carry us through. We had some tragedy. We had we had last year we had both this year we had last year we had both a tornado and a flood. We have we spend $767,000 in a couple of weeks on obligations that we have. Our bond rating reduced due to poor financial conditions. It reduced in I think 2013, again in 16, I believe, and just this last year. And so the bond rating, when we lose or degrade our bond rating, it costs us more to borrow money, and that combined with not having much savings, it hurts us on our performance and being able to provide the services we want to. The tax rate today is 14% less than it was in 1990. 30 years ago, the tax rate was more than it is today. And so we today, I don't think we need to get into too much of a discussion about the things cost more today than they did in 1990. The cost of providing service costs more. That's an astounding figure, I think. Tax rate today, 14% less than it was in 1990. People can't operate their homes, operate their businesses on $1990. I don't know who would argue that's not a fact. Perhaps we have said the PVA, former property valuation administrator, grossly underassessed property for decades, 20-25 years. Bill Dunn, a new PVA, a year old in the job now, 2 years. There you go. We got 2 years in.
About 15 months.
15 months. Feels like 2 years. Doing an incredible job. We convinced some of the people from Frankfurt that PVA is not under the county. We don't manage the PVA. They are a Department of Revenue office, a state office. The state promised and I think provided for a while. Do we still have state folks from Frankfurt here? They were actually they said they were going to do it remotely.
They did. They did some. And they came in person.
Okay. Maybe we need to make a call back and get that call back up. But so grossly underassessed property for decades. I guess, Bill, I think you said you covered about 13% of the county thereabouts. Found, what did you say, 3 million in underassessed? Somewhere.
Oh, underassessed? I don't have a number on that.
Okay.
We estimated that's about $1 billion.
About $1 billion estimate, countywide.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and of course, that sounds like, well, there's an answer. We're going to get those properties properly assessed. The problem is there's a statute that says that our revenue from property tax cannot increase more than 4% a year. And so if we find about $1 billion in property value, our income from that can't increase more than 4% over what it was last year. We deferred this year $500,000 in paving that needed to be done, because we really didn't have the money to do it. We deferred $1.1 million worth of equipment purchases and property maintenance. And so there's $1.6 million in expenditures that we should have done that we didn't, to try to keep us from hemorrhaging any further than we already are. Comparable counties, we compared ourselves to other counties of similar size, similar demographics, best you can. Those comparable counties have taxed insurance for years. We never have. McCracken County never has had insurance tax. They tax insurance at an average rate between the 8.1%. Let's see, also, I don't think I put it, yeah, they also have property tax rates averaging 20% higher than what we tax in McCracken County on property. So they tax at a 20% higher rate than we do on property. They've taxed at 8.1% over many years. They're similar counties to us. You'll see also that their populations relative to their income from their budget is far better than what we have. They're growing by an average of 9%, where McCracken County is not growing essentially at all. Perhaps we're at 0.2% depends on who you talk to. Can we say that because of insurance tax and higher property taxes, that definitely why they're growing? I'm not going to tell you that we can say that, but certainly it's a strong factor when you start looking at these things. Down here in red is maybe the biggest reason why we're in a hole and trying to crawl out, and that's the pensions. The pension obligation we're going to have will increase by $3 million by 2025. 5 years, we'll have an additional $3 million in pension costs above what we have now. And we're going to reach nearly 100% of the wage, at least in the sheriff's office and the jail, because of the levels of pensions that they are in. And so that every dollar we pay in wage, we'll be paying $1 in pension. All of this is absolutely unsustainable. I think when a reasonable person looks at all these points, I honestly don't see how you can say that certainly not that we don't need revenue. You could say, well, why do insurance? Insurance is, from our analysis, the best way, the fairest way to do it. It's the way that there's a great number of counties in Kentucky that tax insurance, and at various rates. The 8.1% is the average of 8 that we compare ourselves to. Didn't try to compare ourselves to Louisville. Didn't try to compare ourselves to Brown County has like 4,000 people. To try to do apples to apples comparison. And so, given that for 25, 30 years, we have taxed and now at a lower rate for property tax than we were decades ago, given that we have deferred all these costs, given that the pension increase is going to eat up alone what we would gain by a tax in the 8% range, and there's several different categories of insurance that we could address. It's just not only is it a strong position, I think it's to do anything less would be shirking our responsibilities as elected officials. As I wrote to the commissioners. We all are elected to do what's right for the county, not what's right for ourselves. We've got to step up to the plate. There's going to be some criticism. There's going to be people that will just hear tax and that's all they're going to hear. And don't bother to look at how we got here. But these points strongly support us needing to do what's right for the county. Put ourselves in the position of we feel that this is the right thing to do. We're going to stand up. We'll address those criticisms as they come with these arguments, and they're strong. And I put the 8%, so we have a starting point. I think that's where we ought to be, frankly. We have some discussions about whether we want to tax, for instance, health insurance at a lower rate or at none at all. But this, that gets us started with the discussions. So is there, I guess I got excited, got ahead of myself. Was there a second for, at least for discussion purposes on the?
Second.
Second, all right. Discussion. Who wants to jump in?
First, let me say that I think there's no doubt that we're going to have to find a way to raise more revenue. And we don't have a whole lot of options of ways to raise revenue. There's been a lot of ideas floated around the General Assembly over the years on giving local governments like McCracken County more options on how to raise funds, and they haven't done that. So we're limited in what we can do. And the insurance tax is one of those elements that we can use to increase revenue. Let me start out by saying that I support the implementation of a insurance tax. I think what we need to decide is how much that insurance tax needs to be. And if you'll indulge me a few minutes, I spent the weekend and today going through budget documents, audit reports, analysis that were provided us by the treasurer and by the deputy judge executive. And I don't want, anyway, I just looked into all the things that have been talked about. Let me first address the Moody's downgrading to a A2 rating. I went on the Moody's website and found McCracken County's information about the downgrade of the rating. The reason it was downgraded was because of continued narrowing of liquidity and reserve due to structure and balance of the budget. Number 2 was the pension burden, and number 3 was a below average residential income. I think while all these elements are important, I think a lot of counties were facing harsh review on their pension, on their credit rating because of the pension burden. Counties have to find ways to make sure that that's going to be met. So I think that was a major element of it. Then I looked to see what the A2 rating means. And here's what I found. Bond rating rated A possesses many favorable instrument attributes and are considered as the upper middle grade obligations. They're subject to very low credit risk. The 2 is places in the middle of the A grading. So it's like if you're in school and you get an A plus, an A, or an A minus, what we got was the middle of the rating on that. While any downgrading is concerning, this is not a major downgrade because we previously had an A1 rating. So it's only a movement in the A rating. There would be a significant impact if we dropped to a BB rating, which is 5 grades below the current rating. That's according to Moody's. That's according to Moody's. It's important to note that the median rating for counties is AA2. That's 3 levels above us. So I think that at least needs to be a goal we need to meet. If the county needs to borrow, another element that is correct, I think, if the county needs to borrow money, it can do so through CAECO, the CAECO Leasing Trust Program. If we borrow money through the CAECO Leasing Trust Program, the rating is based on CAECO's rating and not our rating. If we try to borrow money on our own without going through CAECO, we would be subject to the Moody rating and would probably cost us a higher interest rate. But we could go through the CAECO Leasing Trust and borrow money, and they have the highest rating that's available. So we would go by their rating. So the interest rate by our downgrade will not really be affected because of that element. However, it's important to take action to reverse the downgrade trend and move the county back to a AA rating that it had in 2014. While there are many questions about the relevancy of the Moody rating, it's an important third-party barometer for us to understand our financial condition. So we need to take note of that, and probably should have been taken a couple of years ago when it went from a AA to an A rating. Some action should have been taken then, but it wasn't. And that was back in about 2014, I believe, when that was changed. The factors that could lead to an upgrade would be a sustained material improvement in fund balance levels. We're going to have to do that to sustain county government, and so we're going to probably take care of that issue. A second factor that could lead to an upgrade would be sustainable growth and diversification of the tax base, coupled with improvement in residential income levels. I think the aggressiveness that we're seeing with the economic development effort, I think we're going to be able to do that. If even some of the prospects they're looking at become reality, I think it will improve the job base and improve income. And then the moderation of debt and pension burdens. So we got to find a way to make sure we can pay our pension burden, and that will help to increase it. Factors that could lead to a further downgrade would be continued trend of operating deficits. We don't want that to happen.
We just did.
And further narrowing of the reserve level. So, pardon me?
We just did.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's not. Well, let me complete to the end.
Okay.
Then the material tax base, stop the decline in the, we need to improve the residential tax base and income levels. And then if we don't do something to make sure we can pay the debt and pension, it would create a problem. So the Moody's rating is important barometer for us to understand where we're headed, and we need to reverse that trend. The second thing I want to address is the 2018 reserve level that dipped to less than $1 million. I think you need to take a close look at how it got there. The cash reserve dropped to $767,000 in October 2018, which was the lowest level in $1 million in however far back we can go. I don't know that in the last 20 or 30 years it's ever been below $1 million. And that reflected from the previous year in 2017, it was an $867,000 decline in the cash balance. So the cash balance a year earlier, and it's important when you analyze the fund balances to look from one year to the next, not from 1 month to the next, because of the trends of when revenue comes in and when expenses occur. But there's some important factors to note. The reserve in November 2018, the month after it dropped to $776,000, the balance increased to $1.7 million. It was a 1 month increase of $930,000. That was the highest November balance in 4 years, and it was $202,000 higher than the previous year, 2017. And the reserve dropped from September to October 2018 by $592,000. That means that the bills that we paid were $592,000 more than the revenue. In the previous 3 years, the reserve actually increased from September to October. So it's like there was an unusual occurrence in October of 2018 that caused the low amount of money. It could have been a delay in revenue or an increase in expenses. The average end-of-the-month reserve for the 2018-2019 fiscal year was $2.6 million. In 2017-18, it was $2.9 million. So it's continuing to drop, but it's important to note that 1 month was an anomaly. We can't judge the entire fiscal condition of the county on that 1 month. Reserve balances in 2019-2020 fiscal year have increased every month in the current fiscal year. In July of 2019, the first month of the fiscal year, it increased to $2.5 million, which is $465,000 more than the previous year. August, it increased by $237,000. September, it increased by $260,000 over the previous year. October by $415,000. In November, the fund balance was $1 million more in November of 2019 than it was in 2018. In December, it was $1.3 million more than the previous year. The average fund balance for the first 6 months of this fiscal year is $2.3 million compared to $1.3 million the previous year. So in the first 6 months of this fiscal year, we were $1 million more in the first 6 months of the previous year. And traditionally, the reserve balances are higher in January through June. So in 2019, the fund balances exceeded $4 million in 3 months, $3 million in 2 months, and $2 million in 1 month. So the fund balances were that high. The average fund balance January through June 2019 was $3.6 million. So we can assume the trend for increasing the fund balance will increase through July. I think there were several reasons for the increase. Number one was the property tax increase and restoring the inventory tax. I think we estimated that was about a $550,000 increase, and that money started coming in late in the year. We had reduced health insurance costs. Our budget estimated a 10% increase in health insurance, which would have been about $100,000. But instead of increasing by 10%, it decreased by 4%, which saved us $20,000. So we had a $120,000 savings in our health insurance because we changed from, the carrier we had to a CAECO policy. So we saved money there. Another thing that the judge mentioned, we haven't spent money yet for paving. Usually some of that money is spent in the fall, and we haven't spent any of that. And it will be done in the spring. I looked at what the budget request is from the road engineer. He asked for about $1.13 million for paving, and we approved $900,000 for the year. So we also have a projected revenue of $1.8 million from the state road assistance programs. I think we have the potential for some future savings too in our budget. $500,000 on 911. In addition to whatever we do with the insurance tax, we're also going to have to adopt a fee to pay for 911. That's a black hole that we really need to fill in. And whatever we do on a 911 fee, 911 fee, would be shared by the city and the county. The insurance tax would only be imposed on residents of the county because the city has its own tax. We have some bond payments that we're going to be able to save money on, some of the debt. If the Teletech deal works out, that'll save us about $100,000 a year. And there's other funds that we'll be able to save too. There's one of the loans we have expires in July of next year, I believe it is, or maybe it's 2023. It expires, and that'll save us, I think, $700,000 a year. That was the bonds that were issued for the jail annex and the sheriff's annex that they built a few years ago. Also, and I don't know what these fees would be, the legislature last year approved significant increases in clerk fees, and all the fees went up at least 50%, some of them more. So I don't know how much that savings would be, but that'll help the situation. We're renegotiating the Humane Society contract, and hopefully we can save money on that. The jailer has done an excellent job in what he's done to bring things under control and operate a good jail. But I think we all need to work together to put the jail budget under a microscope to see if there's a way we can reduce the deficit. It may be that we take less state prisoners, or maybe something we can do to raise money, but I think we all need to work together. That has to be a major goal to try to save money there. It's likely that this year we also will take advantage of the inflation increase in property taxes, which is 4%, and that would bring in another $190,000 to $200,000. Also, the omitted property tax, putting them on the rolls, and the underfunded, that will help to increase revenue a certain amount of money. Again, the debt service, there's about $100,000 for Teletech. The sheriff annex is about $300,000 that'll be paid off in July of next year, and if we got some others that could save us $100,000 or more. That's the positive aspect. I think we're going to have more money come in, but we do need to raise more money. In our budget deliberations, there were requests made for funds by different agencies. The jailer requested an additional $287,000 to make adjustments in the jail salary schedule. And that's something that we really need to adjust because some of the deputy jailers get paid as low as $12 an hour. That needs to be increased. The sheriff recommended a restructuring of sheriff salaries. That was $60,000. We need to buy new voting machines, and unfortunately the county has to pay for that, even though there's state elections, and the state probably should pay some of that. The county clerk asked for $80,000. There were small miscellaneous projects in the budget deliberations worth $166,000. IT and computer networking was $81,000. We need an additional $500,000 in paving. New vehicles, we need, and the requests that were made was $320,000. We have a program to repair the locks in the jail. It's been a very expensive program. It's been done in stages, and we still need another $163,000 to do that. And then we had the outside funding agencies was $325,000 for their original request. That's over $2 million that we need just to balance those budgets. I think we all agree that there needs to be something done for salaries especially the jail, and we need to make sure that we keep the salaries in the sheriff's office at a level that doesn't cause people to migrate into higher paying jobs like with the city police. Right now we haven't had a major problem with deputy sheriffs leaving to go work for the city police department, and we've had success in recruiting candidates for deputy sheriff who have come in from other counties who already have their required training, and we just pay those counties the amount of money that training is worth. So that's been a good for us. Again, I didn't complete my analysis, but we're going to have to raise, we mentioned, a substantial amount of money for the sheriff's office. For the pension fund. We need to make sure that we have money available, that if we have a major positive career-sustaining economic development project, that we can provide assistance for that. We currently have $800,000 in an economic development fund that we can use for that, but it could be we need more money to develop roads and infrastructure and provide incentives. There's other expenses that we need to meet, so my whole point is we've had a lot of positive aspects on the budget. I think we're headed in an upward direction, but to meet obligations beyond the next 1 or 2 years, we're going to start that. We probably would break even if we didn't do anything. We'd keep our fund balance level about where it is, maybe gain for a year or two, and then we'd go back down again. And the reason I say that is because of the inventory tax that was implemented, the 4% increase, and savings from 911 and other things. So the bottom line is that we're going to have to raise revenue, and what we have to decide is how much we put on the insurance tax.
What's that? There's a lot to unpack there. Well, let me first start by saying it always concerns me a little bit because you'll hear us give away some money. We'll do something. We'll buy some property out at the Triple Rail site. We just did that for $112,000. And you'll say, well, how are they out of money? They just did this study for Pinnacle Sports. They spent $15,000 on that. And I guess I want to address that because I hear a lot of that. And the best way I know to address that is to think of it in buckets and barrels, or think of it in your own church where you have a building fund and you've got an operating fund. We've got certain buckets, and Commissioner Barlin just mentioned a bucket. There's an $800,000 in an economic development fund that's a leftover from a CBG grant. I think I maybe got those initials wrong, but it's got to be for some moderate income. I mean, it's in that bucket. It's got to be spent in a certain parameter. We've got about $250,000 in a PACRO fund that has to be spent on economic development to produce jobs. You've seen the Sports Tourism Commission. You think, well, how are they going to build a sports field if they don't have any money? Well, that's a special bucket that gets the hotel tax. And by statute, any money that goes in that bucket has to be spent by the Sports Tourism Commission, which has 3 members of the hotel industry on it. So we're not talking about buckets. We've got some buckets with some money in them. They're not big buckets. We're talking about the barrel and whether the barrel is empty or not. And it's the barrel that we use to run the day-to-day operations. I would love to kick this down the can, or kick this can down the road, if I could. If I don't run for re-election, my term ends in 2022, and unfortunately my math says if we don't change the numbers, we run out of money in September of 2022, which is in my term, so I can't kick the can down the road to the next guy. I want to talk a little bit about what it is we pay for county government, and I want you to accept a given for me, and that's a guy or a girl, woman or man, lives in the county, and say they're retired or say they don't work in the county, but they own a house, and that house is worth $250,000. What do they pay for county government? Well, the math is this. You take $250,000, and you take that times 1%. Everybody said, that's right, that sounds about right. I'd send a county tax bill of $2,500. I'd take that up to the sheriff, and that's what I'd give him. But where does that money go? 10% of that money comes to the county government. Most of that money goes to your county school, 55% of it. Some of it goes to the library, some of it goes to different places. But the bottom line is 10% of it lands here. So if you live in this county and you own a $250,000 house, and you don't work inside the county, i.e. you work in Ballard County, you're retired, or you work inside the city, then what you pay, generally, now there's some car taxes and tangible property taxes, but generally the bulk of what you pay is $250. And what you get for that is you get an organization that runs a 600 inmate jail, and they won't let them go. They'll all be in jail tonight when you get home. They won't be in your backyard. You get a sheriff with 25 road deputies. You get an agency that takes care of several pit bulls, most of whom you would not want to adopt. Some of them you might, but most of them you wouldn't. And you get the security of knowing that if you need to hit the buttons 911, somebody's going to answer the phone and get you help. And you get that for less than $1 a day. Now, that's not everybody. Some people live in the house and work in the county. And if you do that scenario, then 1% of your income also goes to the county. There are 3 ways, generally, that the legislature has said, here's how you can make money, county. You can charge property tax. And we do. And we get about $4.1 million a year on that. But there's a constitution, 154, does that sound about right? Act 154 sounds right. Anyway, at some point in the past, they said you can't raise that more than 4% per year. So we can't go back and undo 30 years of not raising property taxes. We're stuck. The most we get out of raising property taxes is $180,000 a year. We spent more than $180,000 tonight. And this was actually a very light night as what our budget normally is. Our budget's about 26 to 29 million. So you know that we end up in operations spend about $2 million a month, at least $2 million a month. So our county has a low property tax rate. Our county has a 1% wage rate, and that's the highest it can go because of the framework of those statutes. While your city can charge 2%, and does, of the wages. We are only allowed to charge 1%. That brings in about $6 million a year. So there's only one other third option, and that's the third option that this county has been able to avoid, and that is a tax on the insurance premiums. It's not something that we dreamed up. It's one of three, basically, options we can do. We've asked for more. I complain almost daily to somebody in Frankfort about the fact that Elizabethtown gets to charge a restaurant tax, which is more of a consumption tax, and Paducah doesn't. They still sometimes answer my phone on that issue, but I can't say that anybody is all up in arms about it. But Randy and Danny, if you're listening, that's unfair and it's unconstitutional. I try and say that as often as I can, but I digress. So if we're stuck then with insurance, and we probably are, well, we are. The question is how do we fairly approach this? But before I go to that, let me read what Moody said. Moody said that credit profiles reflect protracted declines in a fund balance driven by structural imbalance of one-time capital projects that have resulted in a significantly narrowed fund balance position, reducing financial flexibility. That's the first sentence of our summary. So there is a real issue. And yeah, you can kind of look at different months, and as Commissioner Bartleman said, you got to look at the same month. You can't compare January to July. The reality is November is a good month for us because we send out, that's when you get your property tax. So that $4.1 million, that starts coming in. So guess what? Yeah, we do have money almost always in December and January because that's when people are paying their property taxes. They want that 10% discount. The issue is October is our lean month because that's when we're nearly, we're waiting for that bump from the property taxes. So that's why in the blog material I wrote, I compared October's because October is the month that scares me. In my estimation, my calculations, if we don't do anything, and we've done a few things already, and as Commissioner Bartleman has mentioned, we've taken the 4%, so that gave us $180,000. We've taken the inventory tax, it gives us a little more, and we've quit writing checks. We told Randy and the road department, we're out of money. We're going to defer $500,000 worth of payment. That will eventually come back home for us to deal with. So it's my estimation that if we do nothing around September of 2022, we've got a real crunch. So what do we do about that? Before I answer that question one more time, I want you to imagine a couple other scenarios. Imagine that the federal government is sitting here saying, you know what, here's $20 to $25 million. We'll upgrade, we'll match you 8 to 2. We'll pay 80%, you pay 20% on this project if you can raise your 20%. And we'd be sitting here saying, well, we don't have the 20%. What happens if at the same time somebody becomes interested in that 400-acre site out at the Triple Rail site, but they say, we'd really like to come, but won't y'all give us something? And we say, we'd really like to, but we don't have it. Those two scenarios, frankly, could happen and could happen in the next 24 months. And so do we want to just go blindly toward those possibilities without addressing this issue, or do we want to address them? I go back to that question I've started to ask a couple of times, and that is, what insurance do we levy? I spent an hour with my Farm Bureau agent and Ricky Greenwell this week, and my feeling is my house is already paying some. That $250,000 house, he's already paying $250. So I'm real interested in how do I make that car pay something. And why am I interested in that? Because, well, there are lots of people that own a car but don't own a house. Almost everybody owns a house, owns a car. And I want to make sure that we do this as broadly as possible so that guy sitting in the drive-thru right now at McDonald's that's renting a house either in the city or in the county, so he's not paying any property tax. Maybe he doesn't have a job, but if he has a car, it's a way of making sure he participates in the process. And if we make everyone participate in the process, then that lowers the bar for all of us. So that's why you'll hear later here that I'm interested in perhaps a different rate for automobiles and a lower rate for other issues. I'm concerned about health insurance, and the judge has already expressed that concern as well. I'm particularly concerned about small businesses, farmers, who may be paying that policy on a family. And I'm not yet convinced that I want to tax the premium on health insurance at all. However, I see life insurance differently. At the point when I came to buy life insurance, I'd already had my health insurance, maybe I already had my rent paid for, already had my car, I already had my groceries fed, and then I was thinking about life insurance. Life insurance is one of those things that when you get to that stage, you're probably enjoying the fruits of the county. So I view that differently. I might even view that similarly as a car. With regard to issues of the jail, it is what it is. I mean, you know, there's none of us want to live here and just say, all right, well, we'll let everybody go. We don't want to do that. I will say the jailer and the local judges, and I'll give a shout out to Judge Todd Jones, because that number of county inmates, which is what kills us. I mean, if you want to ask yourself why we don't have nice things or why we're here, that the number of people we keep in jail on a $2,000 bail or less for an extended period of time cost us, well, I don't want to say cost us out the butt, but does cost us out the butt. And that number is going down. In August, when we started talking about that number, it was 287. Now it's 237. So it's gone down 50, and I want to give a shout out to the judges who are making that happen. With regard to omitted tax, that sounds sexy. Oh, we found some property that's gonna save us. Well, let's say we found $6 million worth of omitted properties. Bill Dunn will tell you. We do that same math. We take that times 1%. That's the county taxes, $60,000. But how much of it lands here? That's times 10%. So you find $6 million worth of omitted property, you've only found $6,000 of annual income. Teletech, yes, they're going to pay some rent, but I'm not inclined to put the future of the county on Teletech or Genova. We've got to make this. It's a hard decision. I appreciate you putting the work into it, and I've talked too long already. Jeff, you can take as long as I did.
I need to start going first sometime.
That'll be fine. Do the cleanup here.
What these guys have said is true. It's very true. The county's in a tough spot financially. I guess to sum it up and to make it really easy, if we don't do anything at all and we keep cutting back like we have, and we dig into laying off some of these guys in the back, some sheriff deputies, we don't pave any roads, we just cut everywhere we can. The bottom, I think it's the bottom in the red, it tells the whole story. We have to have $3 million in the next 4 years to come from someplace that we don't have to pay the county retirement funds. The hazardous duty is $2 million, and the retirement contribution on non-hazardous is $900,000, and that's above what we're paying now. That's not counting what we're paying now. That's what it's going to go up, and by state statute, we have to pay it. The state's coming after it. We're going to pay it. The taxpayers are going to pay it. So we have to figure out a way to get $3 million in the next 4 years. They hit on, we've got the difference between the sheriff's deputies' pay. I know we got a couple sitting back there, but a new road deputy starting out in McCracken County makes $17,000 less, guys, than what they start out in the city of Paducah. We can't keep getting quality people to work for that much less. So we've got to do something to close that gap. I'm going to beat up on the jail a little bit. David Knight's a good jailer. He's doing everything he can, but we hire 5 to 7 people every 2 weeks in the consent agenda. it's like a revolving door. And I keep telling these guys, pretty soon we're going to have drug addicts taking care of drug addicts because we're going to run out of people to hire. Because these guys, we hire them, we pay them $12 an hour. We give them benefits. But they go over there and work, they get spit on, they get cussed on, they get feces thrown on them. And after about 30, 45 days, after we've trained them and gave them uniforms and all that, they quit and we do it all again. So we're gonna have to make a move over there. The jail is a $3 million loss every year, or that's the average. We've tightened and we're gonna tighten more. There's so many places, there's not any more places to go. There's no more wells to dip into. And like I said, the bottom line, no matter what, we're on the hook for $3 million more than what we're paying right now over the next 4 years.
So, we need to talk numbers.
I have an amendment.
You what?
I would like to amend.
Can I say something too? I want to finish up. Whatever we do here tonight is not in concrete. This is the first reading. So in order to make the time work out, what is it, Mr. Doolittle? When do we have to have all this? If we enact the tax, it would have to be done by March 9th. It has to be in Frankfurt and everything okay by March 9th. So what we have to do tonight is we have to get a starting point. And I've asked, and I understand we need something, but I want a workshop, and I want a line item of what we're doing the best we can with whatever money we're going to raise. So I'm done now.
Well, and so we've got some people who got hands up that.
Well, that guy's arm's got to be getting tired of it.
Yeah, well, he's going to drop it in a minute. But this is for us to decide. I think a lot of times people don't, and I say decide, we're getting our own ideas. What people don't understand is that when you sit down and your family, your wife, or your business or whatever, you can talk freely about things anytime you want and that sort of thing. We do it by law. We're required to do it in front of the TV camera and the newspaper guy taking notes and all that. And so this is our time and our only time where we can sit down and say, okay, what do you think about 7 on this and 8 on this and 3 on this, or wherever we go. And I've called it, and I heard others picking it up, we call it sausage making. It's ugly, and it looks like we don't know what we're doing. And the reason it looks that way is because we don't know what we're doing until we can get together and see where everybody's mind is. And so that's part of the process. And so this is not the opportunity for the public to tell us, well, why would you do this, or I think you ought to do that. What we want to do is come up with, between the 4 of us, decide here's what we're thinking is a good course of action, rather than to, and just like I see Randy Wiersma out there, and I thought about this, the body shop guy, you decide if you want, do you want your car repaired or not, and what about, can I get away with not doing this or doing that? You don't just go in the body shop guy, at least I don't, and say, here's what I want done, and here's how much I want to pay, and I want to pay this much for replacing that light, and this much for the fender. We're going to get narrowed down tonight to where we believe is the appropriate course of action. And then we have the second reading. You mentioned a workshop. That by nature, the second reading can also be a time when we can hear from the public. We can talk about that too. But so I think it helps for the public to maybe say, well, I don't think you ought to do 3% on health for this reason. Well, let's wait and see. It may well be that we won't do anything at all on health. And so we're wasting time and your efforts of trying to say, don't do this and don't do that. Once you know where we're likely to end up, then it gives you an opportunity to come to us and say, I don't like this idea. I think you should do less on this. Some of you might say, hey, you're fine. Just, cut back. I had the guy the other day say, just lay off some people. Well, you don't have to do all this stuff. Why you need this? Why you need extra cars? We tend to wreck a car every so often. So that's where we are in the process.
Well,
You want an amendment?
I want an amendment at the right time, and I certainly want for us to schedule a time, and I think that the next meeting would be the time when we're going to receive public comment. But my amendment would be to change the rates of insurance to the following. On automobile policy, 6.9%. On life insurance policy, 6.9%. On fire and allied perils, 4.9%. On casualty liability policies, 4.9%. On inland marine, 4.9%. And on health insurance, 0%.
Okay. There was a second to the amendment.
If we do a second reading, when we do a second reading, are we voting that night when we do that second reading on whether or not we're passing these taxes?
Yep.
So there's no public comment in between when we do this and when we vote, what you're telling me.
Well, there would be at that night.
Yeah. That's a pretty tough spot there.
Well, I mean, the second reading is going to be 2 weeks off. We can discuss, do we want to have a meeting in between the first and the second, like
I think
next
we ought
week?
to have an open meeting for the public. We're going to do this. I mean, let's get their input.
Right. But right now, we're talking about whether there's a second on the amended motion with those figures. And I guess there's a possibility we'll be going back and forth with multiple amendments, but is there any second for that? No second? All right. So that's lost then.
Well, I would like us to have, I agree with Commissioner Parker, to have a workshop where we can, I know it's ultimately our decision, but where we get input from residents, and then formally approve what we want to set each tax rate at. Just leave it at the way it is right now.
You want to leave it at 8?
Knowing,
leave it at 8?
For right now, but knowing that it's going to be changed after we have a public hearing.
Well, I don't know why we would leave the public out there thinking that we might tax health insurance when we don't want to.
And I got to agree with that. I think right now, we take health insurance completely off the board.
All right, well, I'll move that we take health insurance off the board from the 8 and everything. I guess I'll move that we amend it to health insurance at 8, knowing that I want to amend it all to be lower, but I don't want us to spend time talking about health insurance if we're not.
Well, you had health at 0.
I did.
Okay.
That one didn't get a second.
Well, hadn't yet. We're kind of wandering a bit, but so there is no second on the.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Give me a second.
We could take a bathroom break and see if I can figure out a second.
Do we need to take a break?
I can do that anyway.
All right. Let's take say 10 minutes. How's that sound? All right. We'll reconvene at say 10 till. So discussion on that then.
These percentages are close to what my thought is of what they should be, but we reserve the right to at least discuss different rates at our, as I understand, we'll have a workshop on this. And, but anyway, I'll second it on with Commissioner Jones. That way we'll give people an idea of the range they're going to be in. But again, we have a right to amend it before we do the final reading.
Okay. Somebody asked me a question, so it's been seconded, now we can discuss it. Yeah. On the life insurance, and it's my understanding, and we'll, what this will give us the ability to do, I think, is we'll all be able to, as a community, price something that is close to a potential majority of the fiscal court. On the life insurance, I think it's important to know that at least it's my understanding, and Steve, tell me if I'm wrong, that's just on the first year of life insurance, that 6.9. Am I correct on that?
That's what the insurance commissioner told us.
Yeah, so we'll double check that, so that that's not, it's just that 1 year that gets charged by statute.
Let me ask you a question. We have the survey of what other counties do, and there's a category in here called all other risks. Other than these that are listed here, do we need to have a all other risks category?
We do.
In our ordinance?
Yes, and that should be 4.9, I think. Don't you think? I guess that wasn't in my amendment, was it?
Well, it's not in this list here. I don't know what all other categories.
What do you list? Yeah.
See, it's got all other risks. It's got the ones we have here. It's got all other risks. The counties have adopted.
How do we amend the amendment?
You need to withdraw your amendment and make a new amendment.
All right, I'm going to withdraw my amendment and make a new amendment, and my new amendment is 4.9 on fire and allied, 4.9 on casualty liability, 6.9 on automobile, 4.9 on inland marine, 0 on health, 6.9 on life, with that caveat if that's the first year premium, and 4.9 on all other risk.
I will withdraw my second to your original motion. We have to do that, do it right.
Okay. So now
I'll withdraw my second. You withdraw the motion, I withdraw the second, so your original
Why would
motion
you
is off
just
the table.
do 4.9 across the board? We're gonna raise or lower, whatever. I mean, you already got people out here saying you're gonna do 8% on the news. We haven't even got out of discussion yet.
But is the new amendment got a second?
I'll second your new amendment.
Okay. Well, I guess the reason I want the difference, Commissioner Parker, is because I want us to have that discussion about the fact that the car should be higher than the house, because the people who own their house are already paying some property tax, and it's more fair for the car to be higher.
I agree.
Part of it, and I've written some on it, but I think it's strong to look at what other counties similar size have done, and I don't get the sense, frankly, that you gentlemen see that, but I always, I guess, have looked at is there some history here, or there's some comparisons that we can use, and if we've got counties that are similar in size, and what's similar mean, and you take the big points and you say, well, that looks somewhat similar to us, but and we look at those and their property tax rate, the majority of them are much higher than we are, and their insurance tax rate averages at least at 8.1. And so somehow they saw fit to do that, and somehow for however many years, I didn't go back and look at when they were enacted, but they've been in effect for a while. And so I have to think, particularly, like there's Davis County, 32, their population is 32% higher than ours. And their budget, let's see, total budget is 51.9% higher than ours. So they're, in the range of 20% higher on the budget. So they're needing a substantial more amount of money per population than what we do for some reason. And that's pretty consistent through all these things, the smaller counties as well. I just think the go-bys are very helpful to look at things. We draw the analogies to cars here on things. What my neighbor pay for the same car I'm looking for, and I want that to help me to decide what I ought to be able to buy a car for. What's the? Tell me, I'm curious about the why 4.9 and 6.9 instead of 7 and 5.
Because that's what Beaver Dam does. They do 6.9, and that made sense to me.
Beaver Dam.
I'm looking at this list. It seems to me to give us a number. Number one, I guess, I don't want, the city of Paducah is 7% on its auto, and I want to be lower than the city of Paducah on auto, and I want it to be cheaper to live in the county still, and that's why I want the house to be lower, because I think, so some of the counties have actually done the decimal, but I mean, I can live with 7 and 5, but.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious.
It looks like Carlisle does 7.5, Caneyville does 5.2.
Carlisle's 4, I think.
I'm sorry, no, the city of Carlisle, I'm sorry, 7.5.
City.
I don't know where the city of Carlisle is.
There is.
It's not in Carlisle County, though.
I don't know. All right, so the discussion. So we're on the amendment being those figures that you gave. I did want to say, I think it would be, there was a brief talk there for a second about just going with 8 and then going into our workshop, if we're going to do a workshop, go into the second reading and then reduce them down. But I do think it's smart to, I think 8's appropriate because it's what all the comparable counties are doing, and I'd be able to bet whatever you want to bet that none of them were or are now in the dire financial condition that we are. So you kind of start from there. But if you gentlemen can't get to 8 and 0 on health would be where I am. But I think the fire and casualty and inland marine at 4.9 is kind of on the low side.
That's the reason why I want a workshop. I'd like to learn a little bit more from the insurance side on exactly what's under fire and casualty or fire and allied perils and casualty liability. I'm not sure I understand what all falls under those.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I still want more information. I guess I just thought it would be better if we priced something that was closer to what I felt like we were all thinking.
I do think this. I think it would be a mistake to do a figure and then in the second reading, regardless of the workshop or whatever, to increase any one level, because I think then we have represented that that's what we're looking at, and to give the first reading on a category and then later decide we're going to increase it. I think we might even have some legal exposure there. I don't know who's going to complain if you knock it down lower.
Yeah. Sam, and I asked Sam about that. Sam, you still feel comfortable that we can go up and down from these figures in categories?
Oh, yeah. Until the final reading and the final vote, the whole thing, I mean, all the provisions are malleable. I mean, you can change whatever you want, up, down, sideways. You can remove items, insert new items.
I get your point that we're going to price something and somebody may not come because they thought we were pricing it this way.
I'm sure Sam's right on the law. It's just, it seems to me to, I'm kind of uncomfortable with giving a first notice. The folks are here. We say, for instance, and it doesn't sound like we do it anyway, I don't think, but say we decided, well, on auto, we vote for 6.9 on auto tonight, and then in the workshop we realize, gosh, that ought to be 8 or 10 or whatever, and we jack it up after having told people it's going to be at a lower rate. I think it
Let me
fits
ask
well.
Sam another question. Again, we cannot get together ahead of time to discuss these things because open records, open meetings law, which I strongly support.
3 of us can. 2 of us can.
Would we have the opportunity in this ordinance to set, for example, these tax rates effective immediately or July 1st, and have as part of the ordinance that in, say, July 1st of 2023, each of them would increase 1%. Could we do that in an ordinance that we approve now? That would give us an opportunity to have 2 years to review the revenue, and if revenue is sufficient, we could vote to not impose that 1% increase, or if we need the money, we could just let it go into effect. Could we do all that in this motion?
Well, I don't know if this would be a precise answer to the question or not, but the only parameters as far as time frame that I've learned of through reading through the statute is there's an absolute requirement that the ordinance be passed on a prescriptive basis, which has to be submitted at least 100 days before July 1 of the next fiscal year, or the next activation date.
Right.
So you got.
And I think we have to do it within our term too. We couldn't say it would be beyond our term, it would go up. But if we were to approve that, could we just send them the notice that immediately it's this rate, and then a year from or 2 years from now, send them a notice that it's going up by the.
Yeah, there's no limitation that I was able to find on successive versions of the ordinance. And as a matter of fact, it says that all these ordinances shall be drafted, adopted, or amended and submitted to the Commissioner of Insurance at least 100 days before July 1. So in theory, I suppose you could every year, as long as you meet the time frame requirement.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Oh. I was ready to vote on that.
So we vote on the ordinance, then we vote on the amendment, then the ordinance.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll just say I think given that we're going to have a second reading in which we can lower these things if we need to, and I don't know, I guess the difficulty is we don't know how much, and as I understand it, we may never know how much 6.9 in auto insurance actually we received as opposed to fire, casualty, health, life, but that is quite a substantial lower amount than what comparable counties are doing with a 8.1 average. We've got 3 comparable counties, Hopkins, Oldham, and Campbell County that do 10% tax rates. Even the lowest ones, there's one at 5%. It's Bullitt, but their property tax is a little bit higher than us, 9.6. I just feel like we ought to be a little bit higher than on those 3, the 3, 4 point, well, actually 4 with this all other 4.9s. But anyway, if we're ready to vote, we'll vote.
Yeah, and, I wish there was a way that we could ask the Department of Insurance, and Randy and Danny, if you're listening, that would be nice if you'd make them so that we actually knew how much we were getting from automobile and from houses. But
Well, I think the way
you think they
could
listen
do
to
it.
me?
No. I think the way you could do it is enact it with the understanding that we've done, I think, a lot of study and really beat this around trying to be fair and knowing that we've got to have revenue because of these things over here and roughly at what level we have to do it. I think the answer is to enact it at a rate that we think will be comfortable with generating the amount of revenue we need. If we decide, and we know we're not going to receive anything until October of this year, some of it will be trickling in slowly after that, but within, say, a year and a half, 2 year time, if we get to the point we see, dang, that pension crisis has grown still, nobody in the state's not doing anything about it. We've had this or that happen. We had somebody come in at the Triple Rail site, say we'll build a $100 million plant, hire 600 people at above average manufacturing rate, but we want you to advance the property to us at no cost, or something that would cost us, just like you were saying a while ago. And we'll say, no, sorry, look down the road over in central Kentucky, they got some money, but we don't. And so the point being, in 2 years we see somehow or another, I don't see how we get there, but we see that generated more money than we needed. We're providing the services that we think we need. We got this, I think another part of it is the sports tourism. I think there's a very good chance or if we had the ability, we would go out front and help the Sports Tourism Commission, because their money, while it's coming in fairly steadily, it's coming in at much lower than it needs to be. And we could jump in and forward them money and to build nice places for our kids. It would grow the county, we'd see revenue from it, and that would produce more income for us. But I think it's been, I just don't think we're stepping up at the level we need to. When you look at this county has not increased the tax rate in 30 years. I was a young child. Well, I wasn't a young child, but 30 years. I mean, my gosh, what do you need? What do you need to look further, in my opinion? But, all right, any other discussion? Ready to vote on this? All right. So let's see, we're voting on the amendment. The amendment, and I'm not sure I got it. Did you get it down?
Yes.
You want to read it so we know what we're voting on?
I hope I got it right now. Casualty would be at 4.9, automobile would be at 6.9, inland marine would be 4.9, fire and allied perils would be 4.9, life would be 6.9, 0 on health insurance, and 4.9 on all risk.
Yeah, that's
All
fine.
other risk, yeah.
Okay. All right, so so all in favor of that, say aye.
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 I'm gonna have to be opposed because I think it should be higher, but the 3 carries it. And then on
To help
the
boost your position, I just got a text from somebody who agreed with you, it should be 8%.
yeah, well, there's see my wife.
No, it was my wife.
Your wife. So that's the amendment. We haven't voted on the motion itself. So all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm opposed to it. So that
How'd you
carries.
vote on that, Judge?
What?
Did you vote yea or nay? On the
On the motion?
Yeah, how'd we all vote on that? I didn't hear y'all.
I'm nay.
I'm aye.
Yeah, we got three. We had three in favor of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just couldn't hear how that
Oh,
voted.
okay. All right. So there we are. And so, do you want? And so I guess while we're on it, and we're here together. We have two options. One's to do some kind of a workshop before the second reading. The other is to open for public comment at the time of the second reading. Of course, if we do that, we won't have any real deliberation time to, if we do it like next week, that'll give us a period of time to think it over, mull it, that sort of thing. You want? What's your pleasure? You want to put it for a workshop? You want to just take public comment?
I think we need a workshop. I really do.
Workshop. What do you think?
Let's call it a retreat.
Retreat.
Yes, yes.
I think we just did.
And we have a resolution too.
Workshop's like.
Okay, we'll have a
another
meeting.
resolution.
I'm glad I didn't say what I was thinking.
We'll schedule a meeting then, whatever we can work out for.
RDAAP.
Maybe like a week from now or thereabouts. And invite the public.
Yes.
Say what now?
And schedule a meeting somewhere around a week from now, whatever fits
I'd
everybody's
like to do a
schedule.
workshop and then do an open meeting for the public. I know I'm getting kind of pushy here, but
You mean, and then three
No,
more?
two. One workshop and then an open meeting for the public.
Well, I thought we were saying a meeting at which we would invite the public.
That's fine.
Because we've got our.
Tonight we vote on it. I want to make sure of that.
Do what?
I want to do it before we do our second reading.
Okay, yeah, that's what
I
I'm
think we
saying.
invite public comment at our workshop.
Yes. So a meeting in about a week where we invite public comment, and then we've got our date for our second reading, which is 2 weeks from today.
Let me ask a question. Can we also set that meeting up that at the end of the meeting, if there's a motion to reset the tax rates at a different rate, we could vote on it at the workshop? That way people would know you can vote on stuff at the workshop as long as you advertise it, because then people would know after the workshop what it was going to be rather than on the night that we're going to vote on it. Or does it make any difference to anybody?
Well, we vote on amending the thing and then vote again on whether we wanted to amend it again?
At the end of the workshop, we vote on what we want to set the rates at, and then that's what would be on the agenda for our next regular meeting. But
Well, I don't know.
maybe it's not an
We'll look into it.
Maybe it's not an issue.
We'll
Maybe
find
it's
out
not a
whether we
big deal.
can.
We still have one more resolution tonight too.
Do we? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Y'all ready?
Pet peeve.
Oh, that's right. My pet peeve first.
I'm feeling better tonight, Bruce.
Okay, resolution 9A.
Yes, it is ordered that the resolution authorizing the filing of a Regional Development Agency Assistant Program proposal grant application in the amount not to exceed $90,980 in RDAAP funds with the Department of Local Government and authorizing the Paducah McCracken County Industrial Development Authority to act as the authorized correspondent for this project is hereby adopted.
So made.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Mine read 86,980.
You didn't get the updated one.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Vicky-
So it's
Vicky got an update.
90,980. Okay. All right. Any discussion on it? No? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? That carries. Are we doing an executive session? Is it with
Bruce.
Bruce? Okay. Okay. And so there'll be nothing, no action we take after the executive session, right? We don't have any action items up there, huh? So along with the motion to go in, then we would come back and adjourn.
Yes, you need to read your KRS to go into executive session. Do you get your
Yeah.
KRS?
Where's my, So it would be KRS 618101G, a specific proposal by a business entity where public discussion of the subject matter would jeopardize the location, retention, expansion, or upgrading of a business entity as permitted by KRS 618101G. Okay. Is there a motion? Do that?
Second.
Second, discussion. All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. So we'll come back and adjourn then.
Yeah, you're good on that.